Goodbye then. Be safe, friend. Don't you dare go hollow.
Don't you dare go hollow. Perhaps one of the most common and beautiful phrases to come out of Dark Souls. But what does it mean to go hollow? Well, to understand that, a player has to understand the Undead Curse. A player must understand what the Dark Sign, Gwyn, and the Age of Fire plus the Age of Dark are. To understand that, a player must know how the world of Dark Souls came to be. Because it began in an age of nothing but great arch trees and stone dragons, until one day there was fire. Dark Souls didn't just define a studio, it defined a genre. Souls-like became shorthand for a very specific kind of experience. But even after thousands of videos dissecting its lore, something about this game resists summary. Even with hundreds, if not thousands of videos gushing over the brilliance of Dark Souls 1 and delving into the many mysteries, secrets, and lore of this game, the storytelling of the game is difficult to capture because of how interconnected the world, characters, and story are. It's not a bad thing. In fact, the interconnectivity of Dark Souls is one of its greatest strengths and highest points of praise among the community. But as you likely saw from the title, and the example of what a player needs to know to understand the phrase, "Don't you dare go hollow," Dark Souls 1 is not a story you can simply describe. Sure, you can learn the story and lore from channels like Vadi's Vidya and hear it from your friend who is recommending the game to you, but to actually truly understand Dark Souls storytelling, you have to experience the game yourself. So, that's exactly what we'll do. In the land of gods and lords and magic, our tale does not begin in the land of Lordran, but instead to the far north, where an asylum for the undead lies, untended and decaying, but holding the catalyst that could change the world. The game starts with our character rotting away in a jail cell. We're likely only seconds away from going hollow when this happens. We'll get back to that night in a second, but for the moment, we now have a way out of our cell. With only a strange ring on our finger and nothing better to do, we leave and start down the hallway. Can I go back to the cell, please? Exploring a little further, we come across a small courtyard housing our very first bonfire. Bonfires became an iconic part of Dark Souls, and their variations in FromSoft's other titles offer the same feeling of comfort and relief. Bonfires are places where you can rest, reverse hollowing, level up, and even later do things like repair equipment and increase healing items. Having these brief moments of peace where you finally find a bonfire and can just sit there is great, especially in a game like this. When all your character has known as far as we know is their prison cell, having a safe place where the character and the player can rest really helps with wanting to persevere and continue past this checkpoint. We open the big door in front of us and are met with our first boss, the Asylum Demon. We aren't really equipped to fight him yet though, but if you took the black fire bombs as your starting gift or are okay with doing 2 damage per hit, you can beat the boss. Or you can notice the door off to your left, run through it, and find safety. The tutorial has been teaching you lessons so far. Yes, the controls of the game from the messages on the ground, but also other less overt lessons. With the bonfire, it taught you that there are places where you are safe and can recharge, and in the first encounter with the Asylum Demon, it teaches you that there is more than one way to approach encounters in this game. Brute force it or bomb the boss are viable strategies, but they're not the only options. We run through the doorway and get our shield and weapon. We can then explore through the asylum, almost get run over by this boulder, and examine the room it revealed. Inside, we find the knight who freed us from our cell. This is Oscar. He's the first friendly NPC we meet, and maybe one of the only ones we'll meet. He gives us a key and the now infamous Estus Flask, the healing item for this game. We'll talk more about the Estus Flask later on. Finally, Oscar tells us about a prophecy of the chosen undead.
There is an old saying in my family. Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know.
Whether the prophecy is truth or manipulation doesn't matter yet. What matters is that, for the first time, our character has purpose. Up to a few minutes ago, we were destined to go hollow inside our cell. With no purpose, we would lose our humanity and become nothing more than a shambling corpse, not unlike our primeval ancestors before they found the first flame. Now, we have the potential of being the chosen undead. Oscar asks us to leave before he perishes and goes hollow himself. We leave. And one thing I never noticed until now is that you hear the death sound after you leave. And going back, you find Oscar dead. As we explore the asylum, we unlock a side door that brings us back to that first bonfire. This is another really good nonverbal lesson from the game that it's trying to teach you. Sometimes your exploration will be rewarded with shortcuts back to the previous areas. You becoming skilled enough to make progress has made your ability to get back to this point easier. This is something you can explain in a sentence, the world is interconnected, but feeling that shortcut unlock, realizing the world folds back in on itself, that's something you have to experience. After a quick rest, we navigate up to the top of the asylum, find a helpful hint about drop attacks, and enter a fog wall to find ourselves above the asylum demon. This is where the game asks you to put everything together and prove you're ready to experience the rest of the game. The boss itself isn't too hard, but defeating it unlocks the rest of the game for you. And for our character, this is the first step in their quest to fulfill the prophecy and save the world. Now, as we leave the asylum, a few ground rules. Number 1, I am taking the intended path through the game, i.e., that means no sequence breaking with the master key. If you understand what that means, you understand. Number 2, I'm going to try to complete every NPC quest line to the best of my ability. I did royally mess up 1 or 2 of them, but we'll get to that later. Number 3, I am going to attempt to have my character make decisions and go to places based on the information they glean from what the game is overtly or subtly telling them. At the same time, I have played this game before, so there are going to be some metagame choices that I will simply ask you to use your suspension of disbelief to ignore, kind of like watching a theater production. Number 4, I will be loosely using the lore when explaining the story at some points, but I will not be sticking to it concretely. Instead, it will mainly be based off what it feels like the game is trying to say in that moment, rather than religiously adhering to anything explicitly stated in the lore. Vodivid and other great content creators have already done a bunch of work on the lore of these games, so an actual 100% lore-based story is more in their realm. Number 5, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to subscribe. My goal for 2026 is to get to 1,000 subscribers. It's free for you to do, and it helps you stay up to date with any new videos I make. So if you enjoy what I'm doing here on the channel, I would greatly appreciate any likes, comments, or new subscribers. If not though, know that you taking the time to watch has been plenty enough for me. So thank you. Now, back to the video. We head to the cliffside, where a giant bird grabs us and whisks us away. The bird takes us to Lordran, the land of the lords, and drops us at Firelink Shrine. So let's talk about Firelink really quick. What I'll start by saying is there is a reason this area became so iconic. This is the area where you are always safe. No enemies lurk around a corner, no timed events, nothing. You can spend as long as you want here. This is also one of the few areas outside of boss battles that actually has background music. It helps reinforce this area as being one of significance. The developers wanted you to subconsciously know you were in a safe place based on audio alone. When you come around the corner and hear the music fade in, it gives you a sense of peace. On the flip side, hearing the calming music fade into nothing as you leave reminds you that outside of Firelink, it is a dangerous world. We talk to a friendly NPC. He clarifies for us that there are actually 2 bells of awakening, one above and one below. We don't realize it until later, but this is actually the first crack in the illusion of the Chosen Undead prophecy. How did Oscar have this prophecy as an old family saying, yet didn't know there were 2 bells? Again, we'll come back to this later. For now, our character is filled with delusions of grandeur, and valiantly heads past this warrior to an elevator that takes him down below, to the New Londo ruins. This should be easy. Ah! No, 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 no. Ah, why are the ghosts? Okay, attack the ghosts. Why can't I hurt the ghosts? Yeah, we should talk about dying really quick too. Dark Souls, its predecessor, and all the subsequent games operate on a 2-strike system. If you die, you lose all of the souls and humanity you were carrying, but you do have the chance to fight your way back to where you died and reclaim them. If you die before you do this though, you lose those souls forever. I like this mechanic. It introduces a risk-reward system that isn't detrimental to your playthrough if things go south the second time, but it still reminds you that you need to be careful and you must pay attention. With that being said, I am not going back in those ruins until later. The ghosts can have those souls. The Chosen Undead got what he came for and has better things to do, like upgrade his Estus flask with that Firekeeper soul. Then we can go explore the graveyard to the left of Firelink Shrine. Ah, not again. Why is this game? Ah, is this why people say this game is so hard? No, 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 no. Ah. Oh, hey, cool. Run! Okay, so by this point, you've probably noticed why I talked about ground rule number 3 a few minutes ago. My character did just happen to Leslie Nelson finding a penny his way into extra healing and his main weapon for the run, but metagaming is going on the back burner for a little bit. Instead, we can talk about how the world of Dark Souls is very interconnected. I know, so original. The graveyard leads to the catacombs, the elevator leads to the New Londo ruins, and the path to the aqueduct leads to the next intended area. 3 different paths, with one of them being the intended one, but the fact the game gives you the freedom to go those other 2 ways really speaks to the freedom of choice that you actually have. For now, with our shiny new weapon, we press forward into the next area. The music of Firelink fades behind us as we step into the unknown. Undead Burg is a pretty good continuation of the tutorial. The game takes off the training wheels and lets you run around, but it's not without its lessons. Undead Burg introduces the concept of the item gank to you. What that means is the environment will lure you in with an item, then enemies will pop out to ambush you. It happens with enemies coming to reinforce the hollows you're currently fighting as well. The whole point of this system and this area is to teach you to pay attention. Paying attention to your surroundings throughout the game will help you not only with exploration and discovering new items, but will also give you tips and hints towards the story. Undead Burg may not be the craziest level in this game, but it does what it needs to do, and it does it really well. Even though we don't actually do this until a little later, it is here that we can buy the residence key from this hollow merchant. We'll use that later. Then we continue to find a Black Knight, an elite force of Gwyn, who fought against the ancient dragons and the demons. But we're the chosen undead. We'll be... This is one of the other things I like about this area. The game still throws you a curveball by reminding you that you are still a small piece in a much larger world. You still have to become stronger. Some other people have also asked this, but I am genuinely curious what the actual death count for this specific Black Knight is. We continue through the area, dodge this flaming barrel, and step out onto a bridge. Going out a little bit onto the bridge, we get shot from behind by 2 archers. This is the area's final test. Much like how the Asylum Demon was the test to see if you understood the basics of the game, the test on this bridge ensures you learned the lessons the Undead Burg was trying to teach you. Move carefully and pay attention. If you succeed in this test, it makes what happens next much easier. The Taurus Demon is a good boss. The most difficult part of the whole fight is making sure you don't get sent off the side of the bridge, and if you cleared the archers or just noticed the ladder, you can run back and climb up, giving you the opportunity to perform another plunging attack. Other than that, just dodge the attacks and punish where you can. We can head to the other side of the bridge now, where we'll meet a very important NPC.
You don't look hollow, far from it. I am Solaire of Astora, an adherent of the Lord of Sunlight.
In a franchise with some pretty iconic characters, Solaire is easily one of the most recognizable. He's just so not like everyone else. In a game where pretty much every NPC is either straight up rude to you or uses you to accomplish their own ends, Solaire just genuinely wants to be of assistance. He wants to
engage in jolly cooperation.
As he puts it, he's an undead searching for his sunlight, and you're an undead on your own quest, so why not help each other? He gives you the white soapstone, which you use to access the game's multiplayer by putting down your sign and having someone else interact with it. He also tells us to look for his glowing golden one because Solaire just isn't like other girls. JK, love you, Solaire. In a world like Dark Souls, Solaire is a breath of fresh air, and from a story perspective, having the first actually nice NPC be after rotting away in the Undead Asylum and meeting some less than friendly people here in Lordran is a really good choice. Solaire stands as a beacon of optimism throughout the entire game, but we'll talk about those times when his optimism begins to waver a bit. For now, we have another bridge to cross. We try to cross the bridge and get a face full of fire breath for it. The Drake from earlier has come back, so we'll have to duck into this little stairway. We follow the path and kick down a ladder leading us to the first bonfire in the Burg. Much like the gate in the tutorial, this shortcut reminds you the world is interconnected and was mind-blowing to me and a lot of other people when first playing through the game. There is a path beneath the bridge that you're supposed to take to avoid the Drake, but I like to live life dangerously, so we heal our way through the fire breath and reach another bonfire. This one is right next to the Warriors of Sunlight Covenant, which is the covenant Solaire belongs to, but we can't join yet because we don't have enough faith, so we'll be back later. I don't have much to say about the Undead Parish for the moment, not until we take a right, find a bonfire, and hear the clanking of a hammer.
Well, you must be a new arrival. I'm Andre of Astora.
Andre is the first blacksmith most people will encounter in the game, and he is an absolute unit. I don't have footage of it, but if you hit him, he'll fight back by bare-knuckle boxing you into the floor. The dude is yoked and reminds me that I have to go to the gym right now so I can look like him. We do some quick upgrading, and I have a miniature heart attack when I almost hit Andre trying to two-hand my sword. I forgot the pre-Elden Ring games have you two-hand by pressing just Y or triangle on the controller and not hold that button and then press RB. Whew, that was close. Before we head back to the church, we stop by this giant gate to find another iconic NPC, Siegmeyer of Katarina. Much like Solaire, Siegmeyer became an instant fan favorite, but likely for much more obvious reasons. Solaire is an optimist and Siegmeyer is an onion. Can you get two more iconic characters? On top of that, Siegmeyer is a goof who is always getting himself into trouble despite trying to be the heroic knight like the stories.
So here I sit, in quite a pickle.
This is a slight tangent, but I feel like Solaire and Siegmeyer resonated with a bunch of players when the game first released because they represented two aspects of the player character. Solaire is optimistic and searching for his sunlight, his purpose. For our character, this sunlight is becoming the chosen undead. And Siegmeyer is trying his best to be the stoic warrior who completes the noble quest. And for our character, we're doing the same. We were in a prison cell maybe an hour ago, and now we're trying to fulfill a prophecy that will affect the entire world. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but it is interesting that two of the most iconic characters in this game have traits that mirror those in the player. We return to the church, defeat this big guy in armor, and get another Firekeeper soul. I then started farming some souls to try and get my weapon to +5 before the next boss fight. While I was farming the enemies in and near the church, the Chandler up above on the second floor aggroed onto me. He's supposed to buff up a bunch of hollows upstairs and make that floor much more difficult, but then this happened. I mean, I'm not complaining. We head upstairs. With the Chandler dead, this floor should be a walk in the park. Okay, we take care of the hollows for real this time. We find and free this golden knight on the upper floor. He introduces himself as Knight Lautrec and promises to reward us later. Lautrec may not be as iconic as Solaire or Siegmeyer, but we definitely are going to get to know him a bit throughout this playthrough. Wanting to get a reset before heading to the top of the church, we head back down to the ground floor. We then take this elevator and slowly hear music fade back in. After everything we've been through, the whole journey we've gone on, we found our way back to Firelink. The crestfallen guy mentioned at the start of the game that the lift from Firelink to the first Bell of Awakening was inaccessible, but now we have that lift as a shortcut. Hearing the music after the entire journey we've gone on thus far really just demonstrates the care and attention to detail the developers put into making this world feel connected. As we're making our rounds, we find that Lautrec has made it back to Firelink. We chat a little bit and he displays some early warning signs he may do something nefarious later. No one that sits across from an imprisoned person and chuckles has ever done anything bad. After a quick check-in with everyone else, we return to the church and ascend to the 3rd level. We reversed our hollowing and find some summon signs. Despite Lautrec saying we shouldn't become too friendly since we only just met, he seems eager to help us. We also summon Solaire and enter the fog wall. I feel like I'm starting to sound like a broken record here, but the gargoyles are a fun fight. Most of the boss fights in this game are at the very least enjoyable. The gargoyles do a good job of being challenging and throwing in a mix-up to what you've become accustomed to. So far the boss fights have been big, slow, singular enemy. But now, we have a boss fight with a faster enemy at the start and a second one appearing halfway through. As an aside, I love the fact that the game psychs you out in the boss intro cutscene. You see multiple gargoyles on the bell tower, but the only one to actually move and fight you is the one with a helmet and weapon on its tail. But then a second gargoyle appears and it does not have a helmet or a tail weapon. Just a cool detail. As for the actual fight, this was the easiest this fight has ever gone for me. Probably didn't help that apparently all three of us hit the first gargoyle at the same time and took out half his health bar. The fight is supposed to become a gank halfway through, and all three of us collectively just decided, nah. With the gargoyles defeated, we ascend the bell tower and ring the first bell of awakening. The first step towards becoming the chosen undead has been completed. We also meet Oswald after leaving the tower. He's an NPC that will cleanse you of any sin throughout your playthrough. He exists to undo the, oh, I accidentally pressed the attack button while standing next to Solaire and now he's fighting me mistake that we've all made at least once. We return back to Andre. He gives us a tip about a blacksmith in the Darkroot Garden who can make divine weapons. Divine weapons are able to kill the skeletons in the catacombs area, which will permanently respawn unless killed under specific circumstances. So we take a quick journey past the Titanite Demon's room and enter the Darkroot Garden. With the game being mainly gray buildings thus far, having this much greenery is a nice change of pace. It adds to the variety of the world and gives us a break from the environment we've become accustomed to. Again, the game is encouraging you to not get comfortable or, more importantly, careless. We navigate through the area, grab a very cool armor set, and ascend this tower. As we step out onto the bridge, we meet another boss. I have mixed feelings about the Moonlight Butterfly. In a world full of hollows, broken buildings, and overgrown infrastructure, the Moonlight Butterfly is the first truly pretty thing in the game. It moves with an element of grace, and is the first boss we have seen use magic, implying an etherealness to it. That being said, I had not joined the Warriors of Sunlight yet, so I had no ranged combat abilities, and anyone who has played this game before knows that no ranged combat means this fight is very boring. Your only chance to deal damage as a pure melee build is to dodge the magic attacks and wait for it to rest on the side of the bridge for a short time. I actually died to this boss. I waited around for so long that the boss did an attack I, and probably you, didn't know existed and forced me to reset. I was able to beat the butterfly next try, so we ascend the tower and find the blacksmith Andre spoke of, dead. We grab the divine ember from him and the key he was holding, but now we have to hesitate. This is the first time the story has made us truly question something. With previous boss battles, things have been quite straightforward. Demon blocked my escape. Demon is ambushing me. Gargoyles are preventing me from ringing the bell. But the Moonlight Butterfly attacks us despite the blacksmith already being dead. It makes us question why it attacked us. Was it trying to make us suffer the same fate, or was it protecting the corpse of its friend? Was it being aggressive, or was it mourning? I have my theory, but the game gives you enough freedom and environmental clues to allow you to come to your own conclusions. As we head back to Andre, we spot a side path we didn't see on the way in. Taking a small detour, we find a winding path leading deeper into the forest. As we explore, we find another Black Knight wielding a halberd. We defeat him, and he unfortunately does not drop his weapon. The Black Knight halberd is hands down, no contest, the strongest weapon in the game. It has a 20% drop chance at baseline, and is so powerful that any percent completion speedrunners for this game will literally rush for this Black Knight, and will immediately reset the run if the halberd does not drop. However, there is something he was guarding that is guaranteed to be there, the Grasscrest shield. This shield is amazing. It increases your stamina regen while you have it equipped, and this counts when the shield is on your back, meaning I can still two-hand this Zweihander. With our new shield acquired, we run across the basin, spot something in the water, so we are definitely not going to go over there quite yet, and instead head into this building. The key we found next to the dead blacksmith is labeled as the Watchtower basement key, and this place looks pretty watchtowery. We open the door and are met with a living boulder. Meet Havel. This dude has high defense, enough poise to not budge during a nuclear explosion, and hits with the power of one. Luckily, he is pretty easy to change backstab if you know what you're doing. Defeating him gives us his ring, which massively boosts our equip load and gives us access to a huge shortcut. This door leads all the way back to right before the Taurus Demon fight. We take this opportunity to equip our new ring and the armor we found earlier. The Elite Knight armor is probably the most recognizable armor in the game, if not the franchise, so it's almost law to wear it. Congratulations, I have a big strength weapon, the Grasscrest shield on my back, and rocking the Elite Knight armor. I have officially become John Darksoul. With our new identity, we can return to the basin to bravely face whatever was lurking in the water. We destroy the crystal golems and emerge from the tree line to see that it is a Hydra. Yeah, we're going to need some help here. Quick side trip to farm some souls, get our faith up to 25 because I couldn't get anyone to summon me for gargoyles, and we join the Warriors of Sunlight. Joining the Covenant gives us a spell called Lightning Spear. It was the spell Solaire was using earlier when he, Lautrec, and myself decided to delete the first gargoyle from existence. With our new spell in hand, we return to face the Hydra, take out a few of the heads, and then electrocute the Hydra with Lightning Spear. A valiant battle, and now we can...
What is that?
Skirting around the edge of the lagoon, we find a cove with a golden crystal golem. We defeat it and find it was a Kinder doll that trapped a woman. She thanks us for saving her and introduces herself as Princess Dusk. She says she's from the land of Ulasil and says she can teach us some of the miracles from that land. We accept, but we don't worry about that now. We'll be coming back to Ulasil in a little bit. With our business in Darkwood squared away right now, we give Andre the Divine Ember and then return to Firelink. Sort of. We got a tip from the Crestfallen guy earlier that he spotted someone being carried away by the giant crow earlier, much like how we arrived here. We climb up the infrastructure of Firelink and find a bird's nest. We curl up into a ball, and nothing happens. Crestfallen guy was probably messing with us. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the tutorial. I really like that the game gives you the option to return to the first area. Since we're here, we better go find Oscar. If he hasn't gone hollow yet, telling him we rang the bell of awakening may give him the strength to endure. Unfortunately, we find him hollowed in the same room we first spoke to him, so we have no choice but to put him out of his misery. We next return to our cell and find a Black Knight guarding the cell. We defeat him and find inside our cell is now a corpse with a doll on it. The doll mentions the original owner being drawn to a cold and lonely painted world. This is one part of the game that has always confused me. When and how did the corpse get into our cell, and why was a Black Knight guarding the doll? And why did the original owner abandon this doll when it was the only way to enter an area later in the game? I've never found an explanation for this, so if anyone knows, please tell me in the comments because I have no idea. We find and defeat another Black Knight, and that seems to be it. Nothing else obvious around here. Hey wait, isn't that demon from outside our cell still around here somewhere? The Stray Demon is the next boss we face, and technically it was the very first hostile enemy we ever saw in this game, with it stomping around outside the hallway. This boss is not meant to be fought right now. It may look like the Asylum Demon, but it is much harder, due to the amount of health it has and damage it can dish out. The main change is that some of its attacks now cause a magic shockwave to emanate, which do so much damage. However, if you know how to strafe the boss, you can do what I did and strafe around the boss to continually smack that booty. Then you can back off as it does a shockwave slam. Do that about a dozen times and you're done. We get a Titanite slab that we'll be able to utilize much later. With business taken care of here, we'd nestle up into a ball again and return to Firelink Shrine. The most unfortunate part of the whole ordeal was that we couldn't save the undead, who saved us first. After returning to Firelink, we make our way through the Undead Burg and open the only remaining locked door we know of. We found the basement key on a hollow in the parish, and this gives us access to the lower Undead Burg. There's not a whole lot to say about this area outside of the boss, but it does do a good job of continuing the interconnectedness of the world despite it being about one street in size. The first shortcut in lower Undead Burg is one that takes you almost right back to the first bonfire in the burg, and the second one is found by taking a right before the boss fog. This will get you a shortcut all the way back to Firelink Shrine. This area also introduces two new enemy types. The first are these poison assassin dudes that aren't too difficult if you have a big enough weapon. But the other enemy type is the dogs. Dogs have a reputation in FromSoft games as being some of the most annoying enemies to fight. This is mainly because of their low height that makes you have to swing down at them while they sprint around you. But it could be worse. At least these ones aren't the Dark Souls 3 dogs, but we'll get to those ones in that video, believe me. While we're down here, someone is calling for help, so we use the residence key we acquired back in the Upper Burg to free Griggs. He's a sorcerer who will sell us some spells once we meet him at Firelink. At least, I think he will. I don't have enough brain points to cast spells at the moment. With everything else finished up, we step through the fog wall, and are immediately beset by a dual-wielding demon and 2 dogs. Ah, down boy, down! So let's talk about the Capra Demon, as this was an early game wall for a lot of people back in the day. When you enter the fog wall, the boss and his 2 dogs are already rushing you. This is the most difficult part of the fight. If you can survive the first 10 seconds of passing through the fog, your odds of beating the boss go up tenfold. Knowing what was in store for me, I actually did a quick detour back to Darkroot, went past this living tree and grabbed the wolf ring. This ring passively boosts your poise, making it less likely for you to flinch upon taking damage. Combine this with the Elite Knight armor having pretty good poise as well, I entered the fog wall and ran. This was one of I think 2 times in the entire playthrough I actually ever used a shield for its intended purpose. My poise ends up being good enough and I get up the stairs. From here, you just have to kill the dogs and now the fight becomes pretty easy. If you get lucky with the Capra Demon's AI, he'll stand below you, giving us another chance at a plunge attack. Again, the most difficult part of this boss isn't even the boss. It's the first 10 to 20 seconds when the dogs are still alive. If they flinch you, odds are the Capra Demon's swing won't be too far behind to take away the rest of your health. But with the Capra Demon defeated, we obtain the key to the depths. We open the door to the depths using the key we found and take a quick peek inside. The start of this area has a bunch of the weaker hollows, but mixed in are those insanely dangerous torch hollows. The other thing down here is more dogs and the butcher. The first one we find is chopping away at some meat, and I discover that I can hit the butcher from up here with lightning spear. He's none too happy with that and sprints all the way up to the start of the area to give us a piece of his mind. We find that he was guarding a large ember, which we'll have to give to Andre later. We explore a little more, defeating another butcher, and find a man trapped in some barrels. We free him, and he thanks us for saving him. He introduces himself as Laurentius, a pyromancer who will help us learn the art if we want. He returns to Firelink, and seeing our healing reserves, we'd better do the same. We make a quick pit stop at Andre to give him the large ember, which will give him the ability to upgrade our weapons to +10. We don't have any large Titanite shards at the moment though, so we'll have to do that later. Back at Firelink, we see Petrus has friends now. The crestfallen guy says they are members of the Way of White Covenant, though his cynical interpretation of their mission is they are here to plunder corpses within the catacombs. We meet Petrus's friends. They are escorting a maiden named Rhea through Lordran. She seems quite rude upon our interaction with her, so we go talk to the only guy we actually know. Story of my life at every gathering I've gone to. Petrus says he'll tell us why they're here if we pay up, so we go to get some souls but reset the area in the process, causing all of them to disappear. What Petrus would have told us is that they are here to seek the art of kindling, the process by which you can feed humanity to a bonfire to strengthen it, which from a gameplay perspective causes the amount of Estus you receive upon resting to increase. Since NPC questlines are usually triggered to progress upon an area being loaded/unloaded when certain conditions are met, we save and quit to reload Firelink again, and now Petrus is back. He laments to us that he became separated from Rhea, Vince, and Nico in the catacombs, and he is so very worried about them. We check in with Lautrec, and he offers information in exchange for a donation. We hand over the souls, and he tells us Rhea, Vince, and Nico are trapped in the catacombs, and Vince and Nico have either fled or gone hollow. We confront Petrus about this, and he completely switches up on us. He almost seems happy the secret is out.
Right now, you could do as you please with her. The poor little purebred is entirely helpless.
Deep breath, man. Don't ice him right now. Well, we have a maiden trapped in the catacombs, but no divine weapon and a second bell of awakening to ring. Unfortunately for me as the player, the chosen undead would do what is right, even if Rhea was rude to us during our first interaction. We know what it's like to be trapped, with no hope of escape. We remember how close we came to hollowing, and we can't let that happen to someone else. So, we're going down to face the spooky, scary skeletons. We run past the graveyard from earlier and enter the catacombs. While I'm running down there, we should probably talk about why I really didn't want to do this as a player, but as a character, this is what the story is encouraging you to do. So, this is early game Dark Souls 1. That is important because we currently do not have access to fast travel. Dark Souls 2, 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring all have fast travel right out of the gate, but we only get fast travel in this game after a certain story event later on. There are 2 accessible bonfires between Firelink Shrine and where Rhea is located. The first one is at the start of the catacombs and isn't much of a time saver. It skips like 3 skeletons and a few exploding skulls that wouldn't be any issue at all anyways.
That's the rule of Chekhov's gun. Have a gun.
The second one is after the catacombs boss, halfway through one of the most difficult to navigate areas in the entire game, which we'll talk about in a moment. Sitting at the second bonfire gets us pretty close to where Rhea is, preventing us from having a long, dangerous run back if we mess up and die. The problem then becomes we do not have fast travel, so we would need to make the long, dangerous trek back out of the catacombs in order to make it back to Firelink. So, my plan was to do a pro gamer move and only rest at the Firelink bonfire. This also has the added benefit of giving me 10 Estus to work with. So we rest up and run through the beginning of the catacombs. The skeletons here won't die unless killed with a divine weapon, or if you kill these necromancers nearby, which continuously revive them. And unfortunately, Lightning Spear does not count as divine damage. We run through the starting tunnel and perform a bit of positioning work to completely skip to the bottom of the catacombs. Unfortunately, this skip puts us in the Bone Zone, where the wheel skeletons are. These guys are the bane of every Dark Souls 1 player's existence. Even worse than the dogs. They have high damage and insane stagger potential, even at high poise, and they're fast. The saving grace for them is that they do not infinitely respawn when killed like their other skeleton brethren, because even FromSoft knew that these enemies were meant to be fought once and then never again. We managed to get past them thankfully and enter a boss wall. Pinwheel is one of the bosses of all time. Yeah, it's like beating a dead horse at this point, but Pinwheel is not too difficult. He has such low health that even with my low strength and +5 weapon, I was able to kill him in about 5 or 6 hits. I really don't know what else to say about him. The clones are cool, and his lore is interesting, with him being some sort of necromancer, maybe potentially trying to revive his family, but it's also pretty vague. He also drops something called the Rite of Kindling, which allows us to kindle bonfires more than just once. This is what Rhea, Vince, and Nico were all searching for. But back to Pinwheel. We don't get much from him. His fight is pretty easy, and his lore is interesting but vague. There's no build-up to him, and we don't really understand why he's doing these experiments, why he has 3 faces, or how he got the Rite of Kindling. It's explained a bit in the lore, but again it's so vague it doesn't offer much in the way of clarity or even theory crafting. I am convinced people only remember Pinwheel because it's a meme at how easy he is. So much so that there is something called the Pinwheel Club, which you automatically join when you die to Pinwheel for the first time. I'm still safe, thankfully, but I fear the day it happens. With Pinwheel out of the way, we climb this ladder and enter the Tomb of the Giants. At least I think we do. It's a little hard to see in here. We'll talk about this more when we revisit the area later on, but Tomb of the Giants is one of the endgame areas, and Dark Souls 1 had a rush development in its second half due to time constraints. I'm not sure if the darkness is a hastily implemented mechanic due to this time constraint or was intended from the beginning, but it's pretty annoying. You have a limited number of ways to produce light in this game, so having a mechanic built around it when one of the ways to produce light is RNG until later on in this level just gives a bad taste. Anyways, we start inching forward, and I immediately fall off a cliff because I couldn't see. Yeah, also you know those 18,000 souls I had when I fell? Yeah, I died trying to get back down here. I wasn't happy. But eventually we make it back down here, get past some of the giant skeletons, and meet Patches. He tells us there's treasure down below, and we stupidly look down over the cliff edge. Well, now that we're down here, the game finally gives us a way to produce light. The Skull Lantern, one of only 3 ways of producing light in this game. It has the chance to drop from the necromancers in the catacombs up above, but if you don't get lucky, you have to navigate that first bit of the area in pitch black. With the ability to see now, we find Rhea down here. She tells us Vince and Nico have gone hollow, and they are preventing her escape. So we try to deal with them and die. Unfortunately, I don't have the strength to one-hand my Zweihander yet, so if I want to see where Vince and Nico are, I have to hold up the lantern until they get close, then two-hand my sword and swing blindly. I eventually figured out I could bottleneck them in this tunnel and pancake them pretty easily with the heavy attack, but there were still a few resets that required me to run all the way back here from Firelink. During one of the resets, something happened I didn't know was possible. Since Patches kicked me down, I talked to him again and he asked me to forgive him. While I was in the process of doing so, one of the giant skeletons from up above apparently slid down the coffin after me, which must have been some lucky positioning thing because they don't have the ability to slide down the coffins, and because I was engaged in dialogue, I couldn't defend myself. This then respawned me back at Firelink. I then had a big brain idea, and I go to Darkroot Basin, talk to Dusk, and purchase the Cast Light spell, the third and final way to produce light in this game. However, when I go to equip it, I realize...
I'm stupid! I'm stupid!
Literally, I didn't have enough intelligence to cast the spell. You're probably wondering why I have given such a thorough play-by-play of this quest to save Rhea, and it's because I need you all to understand the pure mental toil this was taking on me. Nothing about this section of the playthrough went correctly, and we have barely scratched the surface of what happened. Every playthrough of Dark Souls is unique, and we're talking a lot about perseverance in this video, so why not describe an example I forced on myself instead of the game presenting me with one? At this point, I finally bite the bullet and decide to rest at the bonfire inside the Tomb of the Giants. I was wasting healing items getting down there, and wanted to have every advantage possible since I was still fighting Vince and Nico in the dark. I didn't want to have to climb out of the catacombs, but I ultimately decided that if I was going to keep dying, I would rather have a short run back. I rest at the bonfire, officially resigning myself to the fate of climbing back out once I'm done. So you can imagine, after all of that, how indescribably furious I was when I beat Vince and Nico on the very next try. Maybe it was the subconscious knowledge I had a shorter run back, maybe it was my strategy finally clicking. Whatever it was, I was one attempt too early. Rhea is safe and able to escape the catacombs, but I am now the one trapped down here. So I never come down here until I have the ability to fast travel, so I had never actually climbed out of the catacombs before. I was inexperienced with this part of the game, and let me tell you, the YouTube tutorials make it look much easier than it actually is. For some attempts, I will get caught by enemies. For a few later on, I just forgot where the ladder was and got surrounded. Some other times, and these were the most infuriating, I would do the strategy that I had done for the past 5 runs with no issue, and then on the next run, the game would just randomly decide to have the enemies do something they've never done before and cause a reset. Then, it finally happened. I got out of the Tomb of the Giants, killed all of the bone wheels at the bottom, made it up the ladders, made it past the skeletons, and entered a relatively safe spot. This was the furthest I had ever made it. All I have to do is drop down and run out of the room, and I would be at the spot where I was when I did the catacombs skip to get down here. A few skeletons stand in my way, but if I can just get across the bridge and past them, I can rest at the bonfire at the start of the catacombs and only have to worry about getting through the graveyard. I drop down, run past the skeletons, and then I realize I made a mistake. I got my turns mixed up and forgot the bonfire is in the third mini-room before the hallway to the proper catacombs, not the second. But I was being chased by a horde of skeletons. I couldn't turn back. I had to rush up the stairs and get past the skeletons in the graveyard. So I make a run for it and...
Chekhov's gun.
I am secure enough in my masculinity to share with all of you that I actually teared up after this happened. It had been about 2 hours of trying to get out of the catacombs, and that was fresh off 2-ish hours of trying to rescue Rhea, including all of those runbacks from Firelink. No actual crying occurred, but I very nearly put the game down for the night to try again tomorrow. But I didn't. I worried if I didn't get out of the catacombs before stopping for the night, I wouldn't want to go back in, knowing what awaited me when I booted up the game. So I stood up from the bonfire, and I ran. Thankfully, for my own mental sanity and my sleep schedule, I made it to the bonfire at the start of the catacombs on my very next try. I rest a second time, and then a third time because I am not taking any chances. I then take my revenge on the stair skeleton and sprint through the graveyard. And finally, after multiple hours, I rest at the Firelink Shrine bonfire. Rhea is safe, and so am I. We weren't able to save Vince and Nico, though. First Oscar, now them. Hopefully that list won't continue to grow. Petrus is none too happy that we rescued Rhea, but we leave him to stew with that for now. We find Rhea in the church where we found the Firekeeper soul. She thanks us again and becomes a miracle vendor for us. And if we want to advance our questline, we need to buy all her miracles. We also need to upgrade our Pyromancy Flame for Laurentius. Considering how we just spent the most painful hours of the playthrough thus far, I think we've earned the right to do something mindless for a little bit. We get all of the souls we need to upgrade the Pyromancy Flame to +10, and we buy all of Rhea's miracles. Just a quick PSA. When buying all of the miracles from Rhea, in order to advance her questline, you apparently also need to buy this Divine Blessing in her vendor screen, but not on the spell tab. This will be important later. With Rhea rescued and several questlines ready to advance, we head back to the Depths. The Depths is Dark Souls' sewer level, and that's about it. It's a series of sewers filled with things like rat and living slug/slime creatures. This area does also introduce the basilisks, awful creatures that spit a curse cloud at you. We haven't talked much about status effects yet. In later games there are a lot more at the forefront, but for Dark Souls 1, curse is easily the worst status effect. If the curse bar fills up, you will immediately die, and then upon respawn, you will only have half your max HP. This effect is permanent unless you use a Purging Stone, which is only found or bought in very few select places throughout the game. I am also glad they never brought this version of Curse back, because even the threat of getting it is terrifying in of itself. Other than that note, the Depths is more of a connection area between the Burg and Blighttown, so there's not much to talk about. There is the game's first NPC invasion, but I wasn't human at the time, so he didn't appear. But we'll see Kirk later. And I guess the only other thing to mention about the Depths is the area boss. I cannot even begin to imagine what the devs at FromSoft were thinking when they designed this boss. Don't get me wrong, I don't hate the design of the Gaping Dragon. Everything else in the game has just been not this so far. I like the little misdirect we get that pokes its little head out and we think we're fighting an alligator, only to realize it is definitely not that. There is also an interaction that rewards your exploration. Above in the rafters is another one of those Chandler dudes. If you don't kill him before fighting the boss, he'll shoot down at you throughout the fight, and also buff the Gaping Dragon. Once again, the game is rewarding you for exploring and paying attention. You also have the option to summon both Solaire and Lautrec for this fight. So, I assembled the Avengers and we head into the Fog Wall. After trying to use my sword and almost dying because of it, Solaire reminds me that I have Lightning Spear, and I don't think the boss ever turned to look at me the rest of the fight, just focused on Solaire and Lautrec while I pelted it with lightning. If I had run up and done exclusively melee, the boss has wide sweeping attacks that you'll definitely need to be careful of. You can also sever his tail for a weapon. I don't have footage of it, but severing the tail also removes his really wide sweeping tail attack and makes the fight a little easier. But with the Gaping Dragon defeated, we obtain a key, open a door, and enter Blighttown. Blighttown is the most infamous area of the Dark Souls early game. This place was notorious for having really bad framerate drops right around the first bonfire when the game released. Thankfully, the remastered version seems to have smoothed out these problems. As for the area itself, the enemies are fast, the big guys do pretty hefty damage, and there are these dudes that will shoot blow darts at you throughout the rafters section of the area. If you get hit by one, you instantly get the toxic status effect, which in of itself is not much other than a more powerful form of the poison effect, but when you're already running for your life and trying not to accidentally fall to your death, the status effect adds one more layer of pressure. I'm not saying it's bad, but I still reserve the right to complain about those enemies. Thankfully, they are one of the few non-boss enemies throughout the game that will not respawn after resting in a bonfire, making any needed repeat runs a little bit easier. After moving through the rafters, we finally make it down from the slums into the obligatory poison swamp that is found in every FromSoft game. And it is here I want to talk about the area of Blighttown from a story perspective. By this point in the game, our character has faced many perils and seen how the state of the world is not too great. But in our mind, this is the result of the fire fading and someone, a chosen undead, needing to fulfill a prophecy to restore the world back to the way it was supposed to be. But here, down in Blighttown, the game presents you with a question. Is this quest going to save the world for everyone, or just for some people? It plants the idea in our head that this world may not deserve to be saved. And why wouldn't we think about this idea for a moment? Blighttown is literally a crevice in the world filled with poison and rot. The inhabitants of the town have slowly built higher and higher in an effort to escape the poisoned water that plagues the floor. If you look up, you can see both Firelink and the sky above. These people were locked away here to be forgotten, but they are forced to watch the world continue on high above them. Watch people experience a freedom they could never reach. For a time, you were just like them, locked away in a cell, forgotten and left to perish alone in the dark. You've experienced the same abandonment the people of Blighttown experienced. You could try to help them, the same way you tried to help Oscar, Vince, and Nico, but it's too late. The damage has already been done. The inhabitants have been warped by this place, unrecognizable from the people they were when first locked away here. Adding on top of that, there is some work done by data miners and out-of-bounds glitchers that makes Blighttown even more dark. I saw this presented on Hawksaw's channel, but there is some out-of-bound terrain showing a river that starts under Anor Londo, the city of the gods. Considering that Anor Londo is meant to be a bustling city, and the lake the water flows into is a poison swamp, you can imagine what the river was for. Obviously, that is just small details and not confirmed by any lore as far as I'm aware. But this game has demonstrated so far that its environmental storytelling is intentional. So, if this was the intention behind the map design, it means the gods of Anor Londo locked people away in a pit, forced them to watch as the world was built above them, slowly forgetting them, and then they poisoned the inhabitants of the town with their own waste. This is a place for the forgotten and the forsaken, kept more out of sight and out of mind than even the rats of Lordran's sewers. Dark Souls has amazing environmental storytelling, and there is no better place to demonstrate that than Blighttown. From the perspective of someone who has never played this game, they may look at Blighttown and think, ew, gross. But after the journey we've been on, we know it is much more than just that. I said in the title and in the intro that you can't just describe the story of Dark Souls 1, and this is what I mean. The game has slowly teased you with hints that the world may not have gotten this bad on accident. Then it hits you full force when you stop to take a look at the world around you. Now that we are down in the poison swamp, we activate this bonfire and take a look around. Since we upgraded our pyromancy flame to +10, we find this lady huddled by one of the pillars. She introduces herself as Quaylana and offers to teach us pyromancies. We buy one for a quest step later. She does also offer us some insights and warnings.
But remember one thing. Always fear the flame, lest you be devoured by it and lose yourself. I would hate to see that happen again.
It seems like she has a bit of trauma. We'll get back to that later. Skirting around the side of the swamp, we make it to this cave opening and enter Quelaag's domain. Yeah, it may be pretty obvious with a cave full of spiderwebs, but if you have never seen anything from this game before, huge arachnophobia warning. We make it down the tunnel and enter the fog wall. It is almost customary to have some sort of joke about Quelaag after the cutscene plays. In any video essay or retrospective, you can expect comments about how easy Pinwheel is, how interconnected the world is, and how neurons fire whenever Quelaag's top half appears on screen. I will say I do really like the contrast of Quelaag's human half and the spider. The spider has erratic animalistic movements that are actually pretty fast, whereas Quelaag's human half has graceful sword swings that are well telegraphed and kind of slow. By this point in the game, Quelaag may be a bit of a wall for some people, and I find that is mainly due to either her AoE explosion or the lava the spider spews out persisting on the ground. If you're not careful, you can get caught in a small mini arena surrounded by lava with Quelaag rushing you down. I elected to mainly just use Lightning Spear, and that did end up making the fight pretty easy. I kill bosses in more interesting ways later, I promise. Beyond her, we find and ring the second Bell of Awakening. As the echoes of the bell leave the open crevice of Blighttown, they reach the ears of a giant, who opens the previously blocked off gate next to Andre, where we first met Siegmeyer. The first step in our quest has been completed. Now we just have to get out of here. But before that, we find an illusory wall, which behind it houses a kindled bonfire and another creature like Quelaag. This is the Fair Lady. She isn't given any other name. We initially can't speak to her, but an idea does flicker in our mind. Quelaag had the title of Chaos Witch. We have an old ring from a witch that we've kept with us since our time in the asylum. Putting it on, we are able to speak to the Fair Lady.
Quelaag, my dear sister.
We learn that the Fair Lady is the sister of Quelaag, whom you just killed. We find out when offering humanity to the Fair Lady that it helps to satiate her pain, even if just for a moment. So Quelaag attacked us not because she was evil, she attacked us to protect her sick sister, but also because she was taking advantage of the constant stream of undead trying to get to the Bell of Awakening. A constant stream of undead means a constant stream of humanity to pilfer, which she can then give to her sister. So if you were feeling great about yourself after Quelaag's fight, the game gives you a sucker punch right after to knock you down a few pegs. We'll be back here later. For now, we need to get out of Blighttown and return to Firelink. Considering we've already done the climb out of the catacombs, the climb out of Blighttown is a cakewalk. We'll grab this key and fight our way out of the tunnel, which leads us to the Valley of Drakes. You can actually access this area early by either using the Master Key or taking the elevator by the Grasscrest Shield in Darkroot Basin, which gives you access to the back door of Blighttown. A nice option for anyone who wants it. We use the key we found to open the gate, briefly pass through the New Londo ruins again, and return to Firelink. And then we immediately discover the Firekeeper is dead. In her place is a black eye orb, allowing us to invade the world of our killer. Lautrec is also gone, and considering his totally not sinister chuckles earlier, I think I have a theory as to who killed her. We take a pit stop and check in with everyone. The crestfallen guy is complaining about some weird smell, and he seems to feel lost now that both Bells of Awakening have been run. We talk to Laurentius, and he asks us about the Pyromancer spell we learned from Quelana. If we tell him we found it down in Blighttown, he departs to go search for the source of these unknown spells. Griggs continues to not really do anything. I guess I'm still too stupid. That's my fault. I did not put a single point into intelligence during this entire playthrough, or any playthrough for that matter. Talking to Petros, he seems entirely uninterested in us, but I will find out soon what you did, and your apathy right now is retroactively infuriating me. But we also find the source of the weird smell the crestfallen guy was talking about.
Hello. Was it you who rang the Bell of Awakening?
I'm so confused. These are confusing times.
Ladies and gentlemen, meet Frampt. Frampt introduces himself as a primordial serpent, who has been waiting for the chosen undead. He gives us our next task. We need to travel to Anor Londo and acquire the Lord Vessel. And to do that, we need to travel through Sen's Fortress, the proving ground of the undead, and the building with the gate the giant opened when we rang the second bell. Frampt is certainly an odd character. Design-wise, he is just a really funny reminder that Dark Souls is still, at the end of the day, a fantasy story. Honestly, seeing his teeth is really disturbing, but I would honestly be more scared with this design, but with him also having big lips to hide them. I also think the little mustache things he has to be pretty funny. So with our new quest, we travel through the Undead Parish to find Rhea is gone. In her place is 7 humanities and a pendant. If you've played this game before, you know what has happened. Like I said in the ground rules, I messed up some NPC quest lines. This was one of them. So remember earlier how we had to buy all of Rhea's miracles for her to move to the next area? Well, it was to avoid this. And the reason we didn't avoid this was because of that Divine Blessing potion in her shop inventory that I mentioned. I didn't buy that because I thought it only had to be her spells, and Rhea's quest is on a timer if Petros is still alive once you rescue her from the catacombs. If you progress through too many areas and or kill too many bosses before buying her full inventory, Petros will kill her before she can move to the next area. We'll come back to this quest step later when we get to where it should have progressed to, but yeah, I messed up Rhea's questline. And what is most annoying is that in the moment, I thought this was evidence she had moved to the next area. The reason I thought this was because these items are not on a body, so I thought, okay, well, she didn't die, she must have moved on. And for any of you who remember the section of this video detailing my journey through the catacombs, yes, this does mean that I went through all of that turmoil and spent all that time only to not even get to see the proper conclusion to the questline. Welcome to Dark Souls, baby. In the context of the story, we tried to save Rhea, we tried to do the right thing, but the system still punished us for it. Very unfortunate, but nothing I can do about it now. So we continue do some quick upgrading at Andre, and then enter Sen's Fortress. The proving ground of the undead, and the developer's excuse to put the most random traps in the most random places. Giant swinging axes and pressure-activated arrow traps? Yeah, that makes sense. Almost the entire fortress being built around tracks for giant boulders to roll down and crush you? Okay, sure. This elevator that definitely got most of us on our first run through, and my personal favorite, the first mimic the game ever throws at you. Yeah, this all makes sense. You get the point. Sen's Fortress is the trap level. While it's meant to be comical and in some instances maybe a little unfair, it does reinforce lessons the game has taught you. Remember, go slow and pay attention. Nowhere is that more important than in a place where one wrong step will have you getting shot in the butt by an arrow. As we progress through, we find Siegmeyer again. When the gate is opened, he thought it was because of him waiting, which I find very funny, and he went through, but he got stuck trying to get past the boulders. We leave him for now. He'll probably have an idea soon.
Like the Triton Roman? Bah, no chance. My head would spin.
This guy is a dork and I love him. While we're on the topic of NPCs, we also maneuver the boulder mechanism to crash through a wall, and also kill a snake dude who apparently got hit with 3 boulders, saw the 4th one coming, and went,
I could dodge it.
Going through the hole in the wall, we find a man locked away in a cell. Meet Big Hat Logan, a sorcerer who, as we'll find out, was a bit of an outcast in his homeland due to his methods of teaching and practicing sorcery. He asks us if we could free him, and because we didn't take the master key, we have to go find the actual key. Luckily, it isn't too far. Past the most terrifying room in this area, we make our way outside, perform a sketchy jump, and find the key. We also found another crestfallen guy who is convinced we won't win. I already have one crestfallen guy, dude. We use the key to free Logan, and he tells us he'll make his way back to Firelink. We decide to make a quick pit stop while I'm back at Andre for some upgrading. Griggs is happy to see Logan has returned. We try to talk to Logan, but
I'm afraid that you are unable to learn sorcery.
yeah, I'm still stupid. So I don't have the ability to buy Griggs or Logan spells at this point. We'll get back to that later though. For right now, I have a fortress to conquer, if for nothing else than to spite the crestfallen knight. I should also mention before continuing, I got enough large Titanite shards from Blighttown and Sen's Fortress that I'm now walking into the boss fight of Sen's Fortress with a +10 weapon. We make our way back through the fortress, ascend the highest towers, summon the absolute legend of this fight, Iron Tarkus, and step through the fog wall. The Iron Golem is a very interesting fight. He's honestly not all that dangerous, but he can knock you off the side of the arena if you're not careful. There's also a giant above the fog door that you can kill before the fight starts. If you don't, he'll constantly rain down exploding pots at you throughout the fight. In my opinion, the arena in this fight is more deadly than the boss itself. In every video game, gravity will always have the highest kill count. There is also a way to quote-unquote cheese the Iron Golem, and I put that in air quotes because it is an intentional design choice. If you do enough damage to the golem's legs, he'll start to wobble in place. If you keep doing damage, he'll eventually topple backwards, and if he's near a ledge, gravity takes care of the rest. It becomes a fun dance of both player and boss trying to whittle down the other's health bar, or be the first to get a lucky hit in and send the other tumbling. Iron Tarkus is also really good for this fight. It actually isn't too uncommon to see Tarkus solo the Iron Golem for you, but I helped out as well in this instance. This guy does not appear anywhere in the game before this point, he says nothing to you, and then he enters the boss arena knowing full well he can take care of the golem for you, and in many instances does so very quickly. He also only appears one time after this point, and it is so you can get his armor from his dead body, because he fell from a high place we'll talk about in a second. What an odd NPC to include in this game. I love him, but such a funny sequence of events for this character. Anyways, with the golem defeated, we touch the mystery light and are grabbed by some demons. You know, between the crow and these demons, I'm starting to get annoyed at being pulled around. These demons hoist us over the mountain cliff, and we see Anor Londo, the beautiful, sprawling city of the gods, bathed in eternal sunlight. Everyone talks about this moment in every Dark Souls 1 video, and there truly is few better moments than being brought up the mountain to see the peak of Dark Souls 1. This city is vast. We only explore a tiny piece of it in-game, but the devs did a really good job making the skybox and background scenery feel like there truly was a whole city to explore. From a story perspective too, this is the greatest moment in the life of any undead. After being locked away in the asylum and left to rot, standing in the city of the gods who vanquished the everlasting dragons and built a new world is a triumph. And yet, something tugs at the back of our minds. This is the city of the gods who built a new world once they found their souls within the first flame. The same gods who locked people away beneath even the sewers and in the undead asylums. who potentially poisoned the inhabitants of Blighttown either by accident or maliciously, and they live here, high above it all, far away from the suffering and hollowing of the world around them. It certainly isn't new to say this is a metaphor for the elite among us being out of touch with the general population. After everything we've been through, Anor Londo is the next step in the path of disillusionment for the chosen undead. We've seen the worst of this place, and now we see where the people who caused that live. It asks you the question again, does this world deserve to be saved? We have to stew in these thoughts as we begin to move through the city, but we also have another question in our mind. Where is everyone? Seriously, for being a city, there's not a ton of activity. We'll get onto that reason later. As we progress through the city, we fight off a gargoyle and enter the rafters. Anxiety-inducing beams high above the ground floor is our only path forward. Remember how I was talking about Tarkus's only other appearance being his dead body? Well, it's down there on the ground floor. The game seems to imply he was either overrun with a number of enemies down there, or his armor was too heavy, he fell, and went splat. And these painting guardians are doing everything they can to make sure we meet the same fate. Luckily, Lightning Spear continues to be of assistance, and we make it past. We activate the shortcut and ascend towards the cathedral. Fighting past the enemies, we find ourselves at one of the most infamous non-boss encounters in the entire series, the Anor Londo Archers. 2 Silver Knights continuously fire arrows at us as we run up these thin rafters with no guardrails in an effort to access the cathedral. Everyone has a story about their first experience with these archers, and most of them tend to end up the same, with the chosen undead plummeting to the ground, a giant arrow stuck in them as gravity and the archers claim another victim. After we get past the archers, we enter the cathedral, find a bonfire, and find our good buddy Solaire. Considering we haven't seen him since the Gaping Dragon fight, it's good to see he's still kicking. Inside this section of rooms, there isn't much to talk about. There's some enemies and mimics. You find Havel's equipment in a hidden room. That'll be useful for later. I did also discover this really nice cheese for the Titanite demon in one of the rooms. I love Lightning Spear, and Lightning Spear loves me. We also find Siegmeyer again. Our onion friend has gotten himself into a bit of trouble and warns us to be careful of the Silver Knights in the rooms beyond. If we defeat them and talk to him again, he'll congratulate us on our victory. I'm starting to get a little worried about the frequency we're helping him out. Hopefully he'll come through and save us at some point to make himself not feel indebted to us. As we get into the main hall, we get a message saying the Black Eye Orb quivers. Using the orb, we invade the world of the Firekeeper's killer and find it's Lautrec, just as suspected. The game never really tried to make it a mystery as to who killed her. I just like they didn't overtly say it out loud until now. Lautrec has also put together a squad to help him out. Unfortunately for Lautrec, Vince and Nico have taught me well. So I find one of the staircases, forcing them into a narrow walkway. And simple enough. Unfortunately, I guess this means the Golden Bros have officially broken up. Solaire will have to make a Facebook post announcing the indefinite hiatus. We then return to the bonfire to reset healing, use the humanity we gained from defeating Lautrec to become human, and return to the main hall. And then I get invaded by an actual player in 2026. I wasn't even playing during the Return to Lordran event people hold every January, so this was a genuine surprise. I tried to fight him, but I have never been too good at PvP in these games, and I die. We're getting sidetracked, but I need to talk about this backstab. He definitely wasn't hacking, but the distance and angle from which this man initiated a backstab is ridiculous. And if I hear any complaints about Dark Souls 2 hitboxes ever again, I will show this video as evidence that jank hitboxes exist in all of these games. But back on topic. I did a bit more exploring, forgetting there were some upgrade materials near the giant blacksmith I forgot about. I like the giant blacksmith. He's not very chatty though. We become human, summon Solaire, and enter the fog wall. Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smough. What can I say about these two that hasn't already been said? ONS are one of the best examples of FromSoft's boss design, and in my opinion are still the best duo gank boss fight in the entire series. Ornstein is one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn. This guy is literally one of Gwyn's hand-picked warriors alongside legends like Artorias the Abysswalker. He is fast and can easily close the distance on you if you're not careful. You can use this to your advantage by making him chase you, momentarily separating him from his partner. Smough, on the other hand, is much slower, but do not let him hit you with that hammer. This dude is brutal. In the lore, he literally was barred from being named the Knight of Gwyn because he ate people. That's not a joke. He would ground up the bones of his victims into his food. These two come together to create a really fun and balanced fight. You have pillars that can temporarily block their sightline from you, and careful positioning can separate the two of them long enough for you to 1v1 for a few moments. With us having Solaire by our side, the remaining two members of the Golden Bros are now in a 2v2 against the much more experienced Londo Bros. The fight is fierce and much easier since Solaire is able to take the aggro of Smo while we took care of Ornstein. Once one of their health bars is depleted, Phase 2 begins with the surviving boss taking the power of the other, and the way they do it completely fits with their personalities. Ornstein is respectful with taking Smaug's power, honoring him the way you would expect a noble knight to do. Smo, on the other hand, takes the first opportunity he gets to flatten Ornstein into a pancake. Ornstein is even dead when this happens, by the way. Look at his fingers after he falls. They curl ever so slightly right before Smaug crushes him. I don't even know if Smaug knew Ornstein was still alive, but if he did, that makes Smaug even more terrifying. Dude isn't afraid to kill one of the 4 Knights of Gwyn if it means personal gain. Since we beat Ornstein first, Solaire and us now fight against the now superpowered Smough. In Phase 2, Super Ornstein and Super Smough both have pretty similar movesets. Main thing to watch out for is the big butt slam with lightning AoE. Other than that, it's pretty easy to strafe and punish. And with that, we complete the peak of Anor Londo, and it's the opinion of many, the peak of Dark Souls 1. We ascend this elevator and open the amazing chest door. Yeah, it's an old joke. Much like Quelaag from earlier, neurons activate upon seeing Guinevere for the first time, the Princess of Sunlight and the ruler of Anor Londo. Fun fact, the creator of these games, Miyazaki, had the idea for having Guinevere be much larger than a normal human, but the employee he put in charge of designing her was so pleased with the final product, Miyazaki didn't have the heart to tell him no. So that's why Guinevere looks like that. She praises us for reaching Anor Londo and gives us the Lord vessel that Frampt urged us to claim. This also gives us the benefit of now being able to warp between certain bonfires. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now unlocked fast travel. With the Lord vessel now in hand, we can return to Frampt and see what is next. But before we do that, we do a bit more exploring, finding a large painting. It represents a cold and lonely world, much like the doll we found on our trip back to the asylum. As we approach, we suddenly get pulled into the painting. Okay, the crow, the flying demons, and now a painting. What's next? Is Frampt gonna eat me? Jokes aside, we are now within the painted world of Ariamis, a world for the lost and unwanted, who always felt out of place in the world. There's some cool stuff here if you explore a bit. Doing so, we find the armor set of the Guardians outside of the painting and continue on. We find this bridge that has a large dragon on it. This glitch is pretty well known, but if you defeat this dragon and then do a jumping attack on its hind legs that remain afterwards, the legs will stand up and give you access to the lower part of the bridge leading to the fog wall. It's a very funny glitch, and it has the added benefit of also allowing you to skip the narrow hallways with the wheel skeletons from the catacombs. We enter the fog wall to find Crossbreed Priscilla. Meet the community's other waifu from this game. I can't believe I actually just wrote that in the script. If this stays in, you have to subscribe. Priscilla is the first boss we've encountered so far that does not immediately attack you. And this isn't so she can say something sinister and then have the health bar appear. No, she literally just asks you to leave. She tells you how to skip a painted world and everything.
This land is peaceful. Its inhabitants kind.
Sure. Peaceful and kind inhabitants. The only way to actually fight Priscilla is to attack her yourself. She'll then turn invisible and you have to track her footprints in the snow to find where she is. It's an interesting mechanic, but it's also pretty easy to figure out, and she tends to die pretty quickly after you deal enough damage to break the invisibility. But since we're not going to attack the nice dragon-human hybrid, we walk past her and take the plunge. I wish I had more to say about this area, but I can't think of much more. It does do something important though, and introduces the concept of worlds being contained within paintings, something we'll revisit when we talk about Dark Souls 3. For now, we return to Anor Londo. To the right of the painting, we can find Tarkus's body and his armor. R.I.P. man. We then make our escape from the painting guardians and get a chance to investigate their set. We found it inside the painted world after all, and it feels weird to have the armor of a guardian inside the place it was guarding. Reading the set, we find out the painted world wasn't a safe haven. It was a prison. The painting guardians weren't there to keep people from coming in, they were to keep people from getting out. The painted world was made to be a place for people who felt like they didn't belong in this world. So they found a cold, dark, and gentle place to call home. But based on what we see, it feels like the gods also used it as a dumping grounds for anything and anyone they wanted out of sight and out of mind, but were probably still too important to throw into Blighttown. That's why Crossbreed Priscilla is there. She was thrown in because of her draconic abilities, and the gods feared what she may end up doing with that power. First the Asylum, then Blighttown, now the Painted World. How many places have the gods erected or overtaken to turn into a prison for those they deemed unworthy? Hey, Guinevere, what's with the painted world inside the building over there? It's just like Blighttown in the Undead Asylum, a place where you and the others threw people away to rot. What's the point of that? You're supposed to lead the world, but instead you turned your hope to those you rejected. Why? Why a chosen undead? Why can't you save the world you helped create, instead of hiding away everything and everyone that scares you?
Father's role thou should assume, and inheriteth the fire of our world. Thou shalt endeth this eternal twilight, and avert further undead sacrifices. Kingseeker Frampt, the primordial serpent, shall guideth thee.
No. No. This can't be happening. Is that all we are to you? Tools you can use to accomplish the tasks you're too scared to do yourself? Is everything we've been told about the gods a lie? Is this city a lie? Are you a lie? Whether it's because of anger, curiosity, or a need to get footage for this video, the chosen undead breaks the illusion of Guinevere, and that is when it is revealed. Anor Londo, the city bathed in eternal sunlight, is just as dark and empty as the rest of the world. The illusion was cast by the last remaining god here, Gwyndolin. He is one of the sons of Gwyn, but has a tad bit of daddy issues. Whether that factors in or not, it is clear Gwyndolin desired to see the Age of Fire continue, so he made Anor Londo appear to be as thriving as it had been before the fire began to fade. It also explains why there is almost no one here. The city has been abandoned. The populace either dead or moved on. This illusion breaking gets rid of a lot of the enemies here, showing that the only 4 main people here aside from us are the keeper of the city's bonfire, Gwyndolin, Solaire, and Siegmeyer. The latter 2 don't even live here and are on their own journeys. I love this moment. It is finally the moment where it feels like everything the Chosen Undead thinks they know has been completely shattered. For some reason, the gods want the Age of Fire to continue, but they've done nothing but make this age one of misery, abandonment, and lies. This may contradict some piece of the lore out there somewhere, but like I said in the intro, this is what it feels like the game is trying to say in the moment. I will note, I am not going to do the boss fight against Gwyndolin in this playthrough. Dark Souls 3 shows that he somehow survived until the events of that game, which means the fight in this game is either another illusion or is technically not canon. Yeah, the flow of time is convoluted and all that, but for the simplicity of story progression, we'll be omitting that, and we'll justify it using some reverse metagaming. I, as the player, know where to find Gwyndolin, but my character hasn't figured that out, so there's no fight to be had. Besides, the illusion is broken, Gwyndolin's jig is up. We'll return back to Firelink. Maybe we'll see him again one day. We get back to Firelink and find Siegmeyer. He asks us if we opened the gate to Sen's Fortress all that time ago, and we admit that we did. He congratulates us and gives us a spell as a thank you. Okay, yeah, I'm getting really worried. I get the feeling this guy will need a win soon or something bad is going to happen. Siegmeyer shares he'll be heading down below shortly to continue his quest for adventure. Even though we just had the emotional gut punch of Anor Londo being an illusion, Siegmeyer's optimism reminds us that Lordran may be falling apart, and the gods may have played a large part in that, but there is still some good in this world. We then head down below and use the Firekeeper's soul to restore the Firekeeper. Why we couldn't restore her outside the cage, I'll never understand, but hey, she's alive at least. She speaks. She thanks us for saving her, but then...
Forgive me. I am impure. My tongue never intended for restoration. Please, if you have any heart, leave me be. I wish not to speak.
Well, that's depressing. We then also talk to Frampt. He seems genuinely excited that we have the Lord Vessel.
Forgive me. I really should calm down.
Frampt may have his own plans and desires for seeing the Age of Fire continue, but I do like that he isn't a puppet of the gods. It seems to be independent of their desires to see the flame linked. Wait, no, are you kidding me? Frampt deposits us in a new area, and out of politeness, I refrain from asking when the last time he brushed his teeth was. I'm not sure how we carried the Lord Vessel all the way up here when it was that size, but I digress. With the placing of the Lord Vessel, the endgame areas are unlocked. Upon being eaten again and returned to Firelink, Frampt tells us the targets we're up against. Seath the Scaleless, who has the Shard of Gwyn's soul, as do the 4 kings of New Londo. Then we also have to defeat Chaos Witch Izalith to obtain her soul, and Grave Lord Nito, who holds the Lord's Soul of Death. These will allow us to fuel the Lord vessel and access the kiln of the first flame. 4 targets, 4 souls. Welcome to the Dark Souls 1 endgame. With a few choices of where to go, we first elect to make sure our onion friend hasn't gotten himself into too much trouble. We should have asked Siegmeyer where specifically he was going before he left, as heading down below has several paths in this game, but we decided to try the closest option first. We take the elevator down and return to the New Londo ruins. We journey towards the city when we are attacked by the crestfallen guy. Yeah, after we rang both bells, he lost his purpose and went hollow down here. We can't do anything about it now. Just do what we did with Oscar, Vince, and Nico, and put him out of his misery. He may not have been the friendliest, but he did give us important information and never actively sabotaged us. He may not have been the nicest, but he definitely didn't deserve to go hollow alone in the dark. As we move on, we find a corpse containing an item called Transient Curse. These make you temporarily cursed, which allows you to damage the ghosts within the ruins. It's interesting from a story perspective of becoming like the ghosts in order to hurt the ghost, but from a gameplay perspective, it's a weak gimmick in my opinion, especially because the ghosts are the only thing you'll face for the entire first half of the level. Use an item to damage otherwise invulnerable enemy has rarely, if ever, worked in my opinion. That being said, the atmosphere of the level more than makes up for it. It is dark and creepy, and most of the town is submerged beneath the water. It gives a sense of what happened here that I personally really like. Also, I know I said the ghosts were an enemy with a weak gimmick a moment ago, but I do like that they can attack you from any angle and through walls. Dark Souls has been very horizontal in its combat so far, so having enemies that force you to think in a sphere all around you is a nice shake-up to the flow of combat. We fight our way through the town, climb up this ladder, and meet Ingward, the keeper of the city's seal. He gives us the key and shares with us what happened. The city was flooded to contain the spread of the abyss, a darkness that consumes everything it touches. The 4 kings and their soldiers, the Dark Wraiths, became corrupted, or maybe embraced the abyss, and the entire town was flooded by the gods to contain the 4 kings. Ingward also warns us that the 4 kings reside within the abyss itself, somewhere we cannot travel. But he does say that Knight Artorias once traversed the abyss, and we might be able to learn that secret from him. So we have a Knight of Gwyn to seek out at some point, but first we break the seal on the city and the water drains. A brief foray into the lower parts of the city gives us the very large Ember and our first encounter with the Dark Wraiths. I kind of regret having the Zweihander around because Ingward hypes up the Dark Wraiths as being this super dangerous foe, but we can just pancake them to death like a lot of other enemies in the game. I did do some farming to get a few Titanite chunks as well for upgrading my weapon, but yeah, the Dark Wraiths are a really cool enemy type, and lore-wise are very cool, that I just happened to accidentally perfectly counter with my build. I also have to praise the environmental design of the lower area of New Londo. The whole level really sells the drowned aesthetic, but the lower levels put it on full display. The stacks of bodies and the crunching of bones as we walk remind us that this place was once a city that was sacrificed to contain the spread of the abyss. In a game where the second half is often viewed as rushed, that attention to detail is something I really wanted to point out. We finish up in New Londo and leave through the door opened by breaking the seal, and find ourselves in the Valley of the Drakes. After a bit of running, we figure Siegmeyer must have meant one of the other down below places in the game. Please don't be the catacombs, please don't be the catacombs, please don't be the catacombs. We descended into Blighttown and rest at the Poison Swamp bonfire. While we're here, we spot an old friend in the distance. Hey, Laurentius, almost forgot you came down here. Hope Quilana wasn't too strict of a teacher. Yeah. Laurentius went hollow down in Blighttown. He came here to find the source of that pyromancy you showed him, but he couldn't find Quilana and went hollow. This one is honestly really sad. Laurentius was one of the nicer NPCs. He didn't have any ulterior motives and wasn't condescending to you. He enjoyed teaching you pyromancy, and considering he's the one who always saying, "Don't you dare go hollow," seeing him like this is really depressing. Once again, we can't do anything. Just another name added to the list of people we couldn't save. Oscar, Vince, Nico, Crestfallen, and now Laurentius. I don't feel great right now. A ways away, we do find our onion friend. He's gotten himself in a pickle and asks if we can spare any purple moss to deal with the poison. I do personally love how he gets all flustered when asking for it, since he believes a noble knight shouldn't be stuck in this position. We give him the moss and he thanks us. Not sure where he's trying to get to, but we'll check in on him later. For now, something has caught our eye. A branch of this tree slopes down into the swamp. We climb up it, and behind an illusory wall is a chest. Behind that chest is another illusory wall, which leads us into the Great Hollow. The Great Hollow is a series of twisting branches located within a large tree. The goal is ultimately to get down to the bottom. However, this is your reminder that Dark Souls is not a platformer. I have no footage of it, but with the rounded routes, sometimes you'll just roll right off to the side despite sticking the landing. There's some good upgrade materials in here, but this is the other location of the game where the basilisks appear, so you need to be careful. Towards the middle of the level, there is a large platform with basilisks that you need to drop onto to get to the path leading further down. I then proceeded to fail 2 jumps in a row and had to make a mad scramble to avoid getting cursed. I really like that this run has just been a series of things going exactly the opposite of how they went in my practice run I did a few months ago. We sprint down to the bottom, dodge these mushroom people, and enter one of the coolest areas in all of gaming. Ash Lake is such an amazing area. Aside from Firelink Shrine, the Fair Lady's Bonfire, and Guinevere's Room, Ash Lake is the only non-boss background music in the entire game. It adds this grandiose feel to the already huge scale of the area. Large arch trees like the one we just came out of stretch as far as the eye can see. Each and every one of these trees could lead to another world just like this one. The explorable space of the area is quite sparse. There's a few clams and bones here, and there is a hydra like the one in Darkroot. Fun fact, if you try to run away from the hydra, it will actually leap over the shoreline to continue chasing you, which I caught footage of, and yes, it was as terrifying as the sentence, "the 7-headed snake creature jumped over the shoreline to chase you," actually is. One thing that I didn't learn about the hydra until now is that it is programmed to continue chasing you as far as it can reach. I was running down the path and would occasionally turn around to see the hydra still nipping at my heels. It was actually really scary. Luckily, I made it out of sight in time and found the reason I came here. A bonfire in front of an everlasting dragon. The existence of this dragon is still a bit of a mystery. There's debate if this is one of the original dragons or a new one created by Seath, but regardless, the dragon is entirely unfazed by our presence. You can even walk behind it and cut off its tail. It still won't care. It just adds to the mystery of this place. Why is this dragon here? And what will be its ultimate fate? Those are questions we can't answer. For now, we came here to rest at this bonfire to ensure an easy fast travel point for a later quest step. With that completed, we warp out. We make a quick pit stop at Andre to give him the very large ember. Using the Titanite chunks and the Titanite slab we got from the Stray Demon, we upgrade the Zweihander to plus 15, the highest we can achieve in the game. We also downgrade the Occult Club to this Divine Club. We'll use that later when we go to the Catacombs. Andre tries to tell us something else about Darkroot, but we're not really paying attention and instead turn our sights on a different area. There was a large castle near Anor Londo. If it's some sort of library, information about Artorias may be there. It's not, but I need to justify going to the Duke's Archives first. The Duke's Archives is a very strange area in my opinion. Not in the sense of its design, but more in the order of events that takes place here. For starters, the first line of defense is an armored boar in the hallway. Actually, pretty effective. The second line of defense is another armored boar further down the hallway. We get up to the next level, and there are some enemies that really pack a punch. I mean, look at that damage. There's also a Chandler in the next room, but we're more focused on the golem sulking in the corner. Based on our experience, this one has something inside of it. And indeed it does. It drops an item called the Broken Pendant. We'll have to take a look at that later. We find our way through the first room in the archives and ascend this elevator. And then we travel up this crystal hallway, like we're getting closer to the source of an infection. We enter the boss wall and come face to face with Seath the Scaleless. Only problem is, we can't damage him. He's not supposed to be invincible considering he doesn't have the everlasting scales of his brethren, but he seems to have figured something out. It feels really weird having a "you're meant to lose this" fight this late in the game. That feels much more like an early game thing, sort of like what Sekiro and Elden Ring do. Regardless, we have no choice but to die, hoping we don't accidentally get cursed in the process. We then wake up inside a jail cell somewhere else in the archives. This area is really cool. Again, FromSoft nails the scale and environmental storytelling of the areas. This is every book nerd's dream. We head down the staircase to turn off that megaphone. Along the way, we check the cells, and this is where I figured out I messed up Rhea's questline. If you buy all of her spells before Petrus kills her, she will be kidnapped by Seath's forces and brought here. In the back of a jail cell, she'll lose hope and go hollow. By this point, you know the rest. Honestly, this just kind of emphasizes how sad Rhea's questline is. The two endings to her quest involve her either hollowing in a cell within the archives or being killed by one of the men who was supposed to protect her. The only quote-unquote happy ending to her questline would be to kill Petrus and then to ignore her when she gets back to the Undead Parish Church. This way, Petrus never kills her and she never gets kidnapped by Seath, but she would be alone. Alive, but alone. Even though I messed up the quest and Rhea didn't show up here, another friend we couldn't save. If these keep piling up, there may not be anyone left for us to save the world for. Down at the bottom of the library, we turn off the music and find that Logan has been captured once again. He asks if we can free him again, and I don't blame him. He's the biggest book nerd we've met, and he has to see all of these books just out of reach. Also, we should probably address the crying cephalopods in the room. Yeah, so these are widely believed to be maidens like Rhea that Seath was attempting to turn into dragons so he could recreate the everlasting scales his brethren had. I'm gonna move on now. We escape the library and get back to the archives proper. As I've alluded to before, Dark Souls had a rushed development of the second half of the game. It isn't really seen here, but there is one gimmick that may have been a result of this rush development, and that's that this area really starts to overuse the enemy behind a corner trick that was much less common earlier in the game. And with how much damage these crystal guys do, it can be quite the drain on your Estus. Eventually, we make it down the ladder and open the shortcut. We also grab the key to Logan's jail cell, head back and free him. The next time we see him, he is surrounded by books near the shortcut and is parsing over all the knowledge in the archives. He doesn't even want it for any greedy reasons. He just really likes learning and wants to absorb the knowledge of the archives for the fun of it. At this point, things have been going smoothly for a while, so it would be really unfortunate if I ran into a situation where I had to set my controller down to grab something, but the controller slipped out of my hands and the RB button landed on the top of my desk, causing this to happen.
Sacred treasure pillaged by Seath when he turned upon the...
I claim to see your design, but if you think I'm too old to defend myself...
Remember how I told you this character exists for very specific reasons? Yeah. Anyways, now that Logan is no longer mad at us, we have the ability to buy all of his spells, even though our intelligence is still at its starting amount. And we do need to buy all of them. So after getting some souls, we buy all of his spells. Logan also tells us he has discovered the secret to Seath's immortality. During the war with the dragons, Seath took something called the Primordial Crystal from them, and that is the source of his invincibility. So we just need to find and destroy it. Then we can take out Seath. We head outside and get attacked by another golden golem. We defeat it to find our onion friend. Siegmeyer, how did you get here?
Oh, have you seen my father?
Oh, yeah, so this is Sieglinde, Siegmeyer's daughter. She came here to search for her father, but then got trapped in a golden golem. We tell her we have seen him, and she says she is going to look for him. We continue onwards towards the giant crystal cave in the courtyard. I wonder what this place is called. Ah, that makes sense. The crystal caves are certainly really pretty, but there's not much else to talk about. There are some moonlight butterflies down here, implying a connection between Seath and the one we faced in Darkroot. There are also some more golems and the clams from Ash Lake. Either this is an example of FromSoft needing to reuse enemies because of rushed development time, or Seath is a well-traveled dragon. If you buy into the "it's all Seath's fault" theories, you have your preferred answer. It also wouldn't be a discussion of the area if I didn't talk about the invisible bridges you find throughout the area. I personally have never really had any problems with navigating them, but I do know walking across seemingly nothing does confuse some people's depth perception. They're a fun gimmick, but ultimately not really much else to say about them, other than that I like the way the path being revealed is crystals dropping down and splashing onto them. We run past a bunch of clams and find what we're looking for. However, Seath is none too pleased we found the primordial crystal and has come to defend it. We break the crystal, and this stuns Seath for a few moments before he roars with fury. We stay back and pelt him with Lightning Spear for a little bit. Then we rush in for melee. Seath honestly isn't too hard, he only has like 3 attacks. The first is a few different variants of a breath attack that also summons crystals. He has an AoE explosion that also makes crystals, and finally he'll flail his tentacles if you are behind him, which makes getting the Moonlight Greatsword from his tail cut very annoying. The most difficult part of Seath is that his breath and AoE attacks, as well as the crystals they spawn, will build up the curse effect and immediately end your attempt on the boss. I actually got really lucky with how I beat Seath in this playthrough. So to set the scene, I am in melee and I see Seath begin his breath attack. The crystals spawn under me and start building up curse at an alarming rate. I am so close to dying, but with the last of my stamina, I swing my Zweihander and deplete Seath's health bar. Even though Seath is dead, the crystals are still around. So I walk forward into Seath's body. Because Seath started his death animation, his full hitbox is no longer loaded, so I'm able to walk into his character model and out of the area of the crystals, allowing me to defeat Seath without also dying due to curse. And this is why we upgraded to plus 15 before doing anything else. We return to Logan to let him know the archives needs a new Duke.
Who are you? Stay clear of my work. Curses upon you. How dare you disturb me?
Logan? He seems a little busy right now. We'll leave him alone for right now. He loves teaching sorceries, so he may be on the cusp of a breakthrough that he'll be dying to share with us later. In the meantime, we never really got a good look at the room where we first found Seath, and Logan is there. He appears to have gone insane. No, not hollow, insane. He had all the knowledge he could ever want, and it would seem that information overload messed with his head. Another name added to the list. Everyone we've tried to help has gone hollow, died, or now gone insane. We have one Lord's soul, but I'm not sure if it was worth the cost. As we leave the archives, we are reminded of the broken pendant we found earlier. As we examine it, we find it seems to have originated from the land of Ulasil. We found this pendant in the archives, and the archives had a golem containing a captured person, just like the one that captured Dusk. That cannot be a coincidence. We better go talk to Dusk. On our way to Darkroot, we make a pit stop in Firelink. We talk to Sieglind and tell her we have seen her father down in Blighttown. She leaves to go look for him, and we go to ask Dusk about this pendant we found in the archives. We make our way to where we found Dusk, but can't seem to find her sign. Heading back into the cove, we find her set next to a dark, writhing portal. Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone back in time. The first experience we have with the DLC is the Sanctuary Guardian. I honestly don't have much to say about this boss. It's a good boss, and it does a really good job of getting you into the headspace of this area being more challenging than anything in the base game. The DLC assumes you're used to the flow of combat of the base game, so it feels comfortable with giving you a challenge right off the bat. As a personal note, I have always found that I do 50-50 on the bosses of this DLC. I usually beat 2 of the bosses on the first few tries with little issue, and then really struggle with the other 2. And I just beat the Sanctuary Guardian first try. That's not a good sign for the future. We leave the arena and meet Elizabeth, a mushroom. She tells us that Dusk has been taken by a creature of the Abyss, and Knight Artorius has arrived to defeat the Abyss. I can't wait to see his resounding success. We run through the Royal Wood, and I have to shout out how well the team made the DLC actually feel like a past version of Darkroot. They could have easily made it completely different and have no similarities and used the passage of time excuse, but they put effort into making sure the environment down to the actual terrain was familiar. While the second half of Dark Souls may have faltered in the environment and level design, the DLC makes up for it. After taking this elevator, we find Marvelous Chester, but I'll probably end up calling him Bloodborne Guy, because look at him, he's from Bloodborne. He tells us he's met Artorius, and based on his description, the legendary knight still has his wits about him. This is one aspect of the DLC story that I didn't fully appreciate until this playthrough. Elizabeth and Bloodborne Guy both mention Artorius, but both of them talk about how he is here to face the Abyss. The fact he is framed in this story as being here to fight the outbreak of the Abyss makes events we'll talk about in a second all the more shocking. And it isn't a trick by Elizabeth or Bloodborne Guy. They just tell you what they know. And what they know and what you experience upon walking through the next fog wall are completely different. Even this cutscene gives you a bit of a fake out. You first see a creature mutated by the Abyss, when Artorius suddenly drops down and kills it, immediately making it seem like you just crossed paths with a potential ally. Then Artorius turns to you, and you as the player realize something is wrong as abyssal fog coalesces around him. It is only now you realize with horror, Artorius has been corrupted by the Abyss he sought to defeat. While the chosen undead fights him, we immediately begin to wonder what this means. The legend of Artorius is that he fought and defeated the Abyss at Ulasil, and yet he's been corrupted. Is this a result of us, or is this another trick by the gods of Anor Londo? Regardless, we have no choice but to put down the legendary Knight of Gwyn. I proceed to beat him by poising through his attack and landing the final blow, poise that I likely only had because of the Wolf Ring, aka Artorias' ring. I scripted a lot of events in this playthrough for the sake of making the story coherent and paced well, but this was not one of them I realized until I actually started writing down the script. And Artorias? I also beat him first try, which makes me a little worried about our next two bosses. We rest at the next bonfire. Going back into the arena, we find Cirion. I think that's how you say it. One of the other 4 Knights of Gwyn. She asks us if we would part with Artorias' soul, likely to give him a proper burial. After giving over the soul, she gives us her weapons, and we continue on. From this bonfire, we now get into the actual town of Oolacile, and get to meet the locals. By this point, the Abyss is swallowing the town and corrupting its inhabitants. As we go deeper, the abyssal corruption becomes stronger and stronger as the town literally collapses into the giant pit at its center. About halfway through the town, we come upon a key. Back in Artorias' arena, there is a locked door leading to Gao, as he is in the middle of carving. He is now blind and has put his great bow off to the side, since he has no way of fighting anymore. We've talked a bit about disillusionment so far in this video, and I'll bring it up again at the end of the DLC. But the 4 Knights of Gwyn do a really good job of shattering our characters' faith in the history they have been told. The history portrays the gods as these larger-than-life characters, but this DLC really humanizes them. Artorias became corrupted by the Abyss, having never actually defeated it like the legends say. Cirion has seemingly no desire to do anything to help stop the Abyss. She has no will to fight anymore. Goff physically can't help anymore due to his inability to see, and Ornstein isn't even here. All 4 Knights of Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight's hand-picked elites, all faltered in the face of the outbreak of the Abyss at Oolacile. Back in Anor Londo, we learned that even the city itself was a trick, a lie. Who knows what else the gods have been lying about? Their seat of power is desolate in the present day, and their most elite warriors in the past were decimated by the cause of this outbreak. Dark Souls shows it time and time again. This is a world in decline, so much so that not even the beings who defeated the everlasting dragons can ignore it. Getting back into the gameplay, Goff warns us of a nearby dragon, Kalameet. We spotted him earlier during our run through the woods, so we know Goff is telling the truth. We pop by the area we first encountered him to find Kalameet swing by. We approach the area and promptly take a fistful of fire breath. We go tattle to Goff, and he agrees to help us out. He lands the greatest shot of all time and grounds Kalameet, giving us just enough time to take him. After a few attempts where I get comboed to death, I am reminded of my curse with this DLC, which was really annoying considering on my previous playthrough to prep for this video, I beat him first try. I can't really describe it, but Kalameet is a really fun fight that sometimes feels slightly too fast for Dark Souls 1. Specifically, if you get hit, it's entirely possible you won't be able to avoid getting hit again and potentially killed. Don't get me wrong, I love this fight, and Kalameet is such a unique dragon. It's just always a mixed bag of how well I do whenever I fight him. Eventually, we kill Kalameet, and Goff is impressed by our efforts. From there, we move on back down the depths of Oolacile, but not before Goff reveals this to us.
But, seduced by a dark serpent or no, they awoke that thing themselves and drove it mad. One's demise is always one's own making.
We have to assume Goff is telling the truth. What other reason would he have to lie? According to him, this wasn't an accident. The town purposely disturbed whatever creature caused this outbreak. Eventually, we make it back to the bottom of the corruption and find the Chasm of the Abyss. This place is honestly pretty creepy. A series of rocky cliffs inside a really dark cave. The environment is littered with corrupted Oolacile townsfolk and pure humanity, likely remnants of other townsfolk who were either fortunate or unfortunate enough to not get corrupted. We wander through the chasm when a large cat suddenly catches our eye. Following this conjuration leads us down a path to a wolf, Sif, the companion of Knight Artorias. Upon saving him from some humanity sprites, the wolf howls and disappears. From the shield we acquire, we learn that Artorias gave up his shield before he was corrupted to keep Sif safe. Not having this shield is also what likely led to Artorias' dominant arm being broken, which is why he fights us with the sword in his other hand when we face him. Now, ultimately, the question is, we are down in the belly of the beast. The creature that kidnapped Princess Dusk and defeated Artorias is down here somewhere, and we still haven't seen the owner of the hand that pulled us here in the first place. We step through a fog wall and find ourselves staring over a cliff edge.
Come on.
Seriously, getting pulled into other places needs to stop. First the crow and the painting, then the hand from earlier and... Oh my goodness. Manus, father of the Abyss, the creature that the town of Ulasil awoke, the one that kidnapped Princess Dusk, corrupted Artorias, and pulled us into the past. The broken pendant is described as having an air of reverence and nostalgia. Seemingly, the pendant belonged to Manus and was likely buried with him. While it's not revealed until the third game, Manus likely was originally from the Ringed City, and died here while on some sort of diplomatic or religious excursion to the town. For some reason, the people of Ulasil took the pendant from Manus's grave, and seemingly broke it at some point, causing his humanity to surge and go mad, much like how Gwyn broke the world to preserve the Age of Fire. And of course, now we have to deal with it, because apparently cleaning up other people's messes is all that the Chosen Undead is good for. If you've saved Sif at this point, you can summon him once in the arena, giving him a chance to avenge his fallen master and friend as the two of you battle the dark side by side. Manus is also a really fun fight, but I personally feel like your enjoyment of him will vary depending on your RNG. He could either give you his really easy to dodge jump attack, or he could juggle you like a volleyball and then completely ignore the dog stabbing him in the ankle while you desperately try to recover. Your mileage will vary. Regardless, Manus is a fantastic conclusion to the DLC, both from a gameplay and story perspective. Taking him down always feels like a massive achievement. From the gameplay side because you beat one of the game's hardest challenges, but from a story perspective, you just defeated a foe that bested the legendary Abyss Walker himself. After Manus dies, we find a younger Princess Dusk. Having saved her, we return to Elizabeth. She thanks us for our help and confesses that she will remember what we did here forever, even though the rest of the world will never know the truth. And why would they? The gods would never allow it. They would never let the news get out that an undead succeeded where the great Artorias failed. And we just have to accept that. Even if we did return to our present time and told the true story, who would believe us? When we do return to the present and talk to Dusk again, she goes out of her way to convince herself the resemblance we share to her savior in the past is just a trick of her mind, a result of her being in and out of consciousness while being held captive by Manus.
This may strike thine ear as somewhat peculiar, but long ago, in my homeland of Ulasil, I was beset by a creature from the Abyss. I would have perished then, were it not for the great knight Artorias. In truth, I saw little of what transpired, for mine senses were already fled. But even still, there was something about Artorias, a certain balance of the humors that quite perfectly fits your semblance. Heavens, could it be that? Oh, dear me, that was Ulasil, many centuries ago. Please excuse my fanciful musings.
The legend of Artorias the Abyss Walker is so ingrained into the history of the world that the only other human who witnessed the truth actively gaslights herself into believing what she saw was something else. Nothing against Dusk, of course. She isn't doing it maliciously. She has no reason to believe that we were somehow involved. It's just more evidence to show how engineered this world is to favor the gods. We finished Artorias' mission, and the gods gave him the credit to protect their image. It's almost ironic. They didn't need an undead to be their savior back then, but now that the fire is fading, they need one more than ever. With our time in Ulasil at an end and Dusk safe in the present, we climb up this ladder off to the side of the cove and explore what the town is like in the present day. We got a tip from Andre earlier that the Darkroot Garden houses the grave of Artorias, and considering what we just learned about in the past, it seems like we should go take a look. We still need a way to traverse the abyss of New Londo after all. We navigate through the forest through the back way. You can buy the crest from Andre to open a more direct route, but I don't want to go spend that money. As we explore the garden, we find a familiar looking bridge that leads to a large door. Inside we see a gravesite with Artorias' sword, and as we approach, we are reminded that an old friend survived the battle with Manus. As Sif prepares to devour the intruder, he recognizes our scent and lets out a howl of despair. If we hadn't done the DLC before facing Sif, he would be much more aggressive and instantly attack in order to defend Artorias' grave. But now, he takes up his sword to also protect us. Sif battled alongside us against the Father of the Abyss. He knows we can stare the Abyss in the face and survive. But we are clearly here because we need to face the Abyss once more, and he can't let us take that risk again. On top of that, Artorias was his friend and master. Sif cannot and will not let anyone defile the gravesite, even if we were once allies. I've always loved that there is an alternate cutscene to this fight if you do the DLC first. Did we do the DLC first solely for this cutscene? No, but it was a contributing factor. Sif as a fight is a pretty challenging battle if you're early in your playthrough, but with us rocking a plus 15 weapon and endgame stats, the poor pupper goes down pretty quickly. The worst part is that when Sif gets to low health, he will start to limp. His attacks will be much weaker, and he will fall over after some of them. I tried so hard to land the final hit before he started limping, but he jumped away and I was forced to watch in horror. This is the one fight in the game you never feel good about after you finish it. We claim the ring he was guarding, the Covenant of Artorias, giving us the ability to traverse the Abyss. So, now that we're equipped to face the Four Kings, I promise to explain why we are doing the endgame areas in this order. Aside from the added gut punch of the alternate Sif cutscene, there is another reason we went Duke's Archives to DLC to Four Kings, and that's because, well, this is where my first Dark Souls 1 playthrough ended. As a bit of backstory, Dark Souls 1 was not my first Souls game. No, that honor goes to Dark Souls 3. I played through the game at the recommendation of two very close friends and quite enjoyed it. We even did a chunk of my first playthrough co-op. Then they recommended I get the first two games when we all saw a huge sale for them going on. I bought them and we started a co-op Dark Souls 1 playthrough. We got through everything up to ONS and they wanted me to experience the DLC. So we went through, took care of Seath after grabbing the broken pendant, then played through the entire DLC. After we got to the Four Kings, my one friend summoned both of us and we beat them easily. Then we summoned in my world and beat them easily. Then we had some issues with summon signs not appearing, and it was late, so we all decided to go to bed. And that's where the playthrough ended. Both of my friends have played Dark Souls 1 multiple times at that point. They knew after Four Kings we had to deal with Lost Izalith and the Tomb of the Giants. Don't worry, this isn't some fake out about how I had a falling out with them. The three of us are still really close friends, and we love running through FromSoft games. We just never returned to that original Dark Souls 1 playthrough. We may never, and I'm okay with that. I've alluded to this previously, that the hollows you encounter in-game are players who quit their playthroughs before beating the game. They lost their purpose, and therefore their humanity. But I personally choose to believe that my character and the characters of my friends have not gone hollow. My character can't speak for the other two, but he is ready to fight the Four Kings again. He has his sign down, ready to be summoned. Throughout the playthrough, there were several instances where me as the player didn't understand the summon system of this game specifically, and it resulted in some confusing moments with signs not working or not even appearing. My character thinks, for a moment, maybe it finally happened. Maybe his friends finally got the summoning system wrong too. Maybe all three of them have their signs down, preventing them from seeing each other's. Eventually, my character hopes his friend, who has yet to beat the Four Kings, will realize his mistake and cancel his sign, allowing him to summon the other two. The three of them can continue their advance. Maybe his friends have gone hollow. It's certainly possible. It's happened to other friends in this world, but he chooses to believe that hasn't happened. He has to. So for now, he sits, fully human, with his sign down, and he waits. But in the present time, in this world, we equip the strongest armor we have, make sure the ring is equipped, and jump. That fall is always terrifying. With the first king spawning, we charge forward. The way this fight works is the kings stagger their entrance, with a new one spawning every 30-ish seconds. Up to 4 kings can be present at any one time, but good luck trying to win that fight. So instead it's a damage race to only have one king active at one time. With our Havel armor, we have the poise of a mountain and can just heal and swing our way through the fight. Another Lord Soul down. We make a quick pit stop in Blighttown on our way to the next area. We talk to Quelana and she shares that she is one of the daughters of Izalith, making her the sister to Quelaag and the Fair Lady. She begs us to go and defeat her mother and other siblings that were trapped in the Chaos Flame. For those not familiar with the lore, when the fire first began to fade, Izalith attempted to use her own soul to create a new first flame. but during the ritual, she and her daughters were consumed by the flame. Quelana managed to escape. Quelaag and the Fair Lady became partially mutilated, and seemingly others were completely engulfed. This is also what caused the creation of the demons, and further drove Gwyn into a panic to the point of sacrificing himself to rekindle the first flame. Quelana believes that 1,000 years of torture are enough, and we set out to oblige her request. We make a quick pit stop at the Fair Lady. I momentarily leave the Sunbros Covenant. If you know what I'm doing, you understand. We trade a whopping 30 humanity to the Fair Lady and reach rank 2 in her covenant. This will be important later.
Quelaag, please, sister, do not cry. I am happy, really. I have you. Don't I?
Yep, I still feel bad about that. We then descend past the second Bell of Awakening and enter the start of the Demon Ruins. But we can't get to them yet, as there's a ton of lava in the way. We investigate and find this guy, Ceaseless Discharge. Stop laughing, it's not funny. This guy pays us no mind until we disturb the grave of a daughter of Izalith he was mourning. We try to hot-foot it out, but we're trapped. He jumps after us and gets stuck. After some wailing, he's defeated and the lava that was spewing from him cools, allowing us to access the ruins below. Yeah, so I've been alluding to the rushed development of the second half of Dark Souls for the entire video. The Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith are the prime examples of why. And I'm not saying Ceaseless is a bad or forgettable boss because of the rushed development of this game. He's just very boring, and fighting him without the use of this mechanic where he traps himself is more annoying than it is rewarding. We're going to talk more about Dark Souls having a rushed development as we go through the rest of the area. Exhibit A. We run down onto the cooled lava, which is probably still blistering hot, but I digress, and we find a field of Taurus and Capra demons. I do like the concept of early game bosses coming back as rank and file enemies later in the game as a way of showing how far you've come. That's not what I take issue with. What I take issue with is them looking like they have all been copy-pasted in without much care. It's just sort of depressing. As we head down this path, we get invaded by an NPC. If you'll remember, we were supposed to get invaded by Kirk in the depths, but I wasn't human, so this is our first battle against him. He invades you 3 times, and each successful kill gets you another part of his armor. Unfortunately for Kirk, he is still an NPC, and I still have the Zweihander. Moving on. We make it to the next area, enter this fog wall, and it's just another Asylum demon. Actually, more specifically, he is the Stray Demon. That's not even a joke. People found the game files that the Demon Fire Sage has all the same stats and resistances as the Stray Demon. The Fire Sage doesn't even have resistance to fire, despite being ray textured to literally be on fire. I need to do a quick rant about this, as I feel like the Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith are the only area that I believe objectively fails at environmental storytelling. I mean, this is the home of the demons, but there's nothing here. No real iconography, no hints to demon culture. This doesn't feel like the home of the demons. It just feels like a bunch of ruins that demons happen to be in. And it feels like that because that's what it is. This area had to be rushed through development, so the team didn't have time to put the care and detail into the ruins like they did for the rest of the game. And it's honestly just sad. These areas are a monument to lost potential, and I haven't even gotten to the main gripe people have with this area yet. Back on track, we open the shortcut to the Fair Lady's bonfire, then we turn around. There is this hallway with roots taking us deeper. At the end, we find some sunlight maggots and a door. We open the door thanks to being rank 2 in the Fair Lady's Covenant and find more sunlight maggots. And then we murder them all. We get the sunlight maggot helmet, which is the third way of producing light in this game that I talked about when we were at the catacombs. This is also a shortcut to the end of Lost Izalith, but we're not going this way right now. Instead, with a future quest step ensured, we return and continue on the Izalith boss gauntlet. We find Solaire's summon sign and get him in here. We haven't seen him since Ornstein and Smough, so seeing he is still okay brings us some relief. We then step through the fog wall. The Centipede Demon is an interesting boss. I like the gimmick of the boss having the key to avoiding taking huge damage from the lava in the form of the orange Chardbring, and that you can get it early if you cut off part of the Centipede Demon and kill the other demon it creates. Other than that, the Centipede Demon is certainly a boss. Apparently boss enough to get put in Night Rain. I personally don't much care for the design of the Centipede Demon, if I'm being honest. It looks like 3 different creatures all got collision physics and merged into each other and then became a boss. Certainly visually interesting, but not too visually appealing, if that makes sense. We beat him and run outside to find Solaire sitting by the bonfire. There you are, Solaire. I've been having the craziest day. I am so glad to see that...
Why? Why? After all this searching, I still cannot find it.
No, not you too, Solaire. Solaire, please don't go. We've lost so many during our time in Lordran, and now the spark of optimism in Solaire is starting to go out. As I stated back when we first met him, Solaire became a fan favorite in part for his optimism and desire to help. But what happens when that optimism begins to fade? Solaire has been searching for his sunlight, one might say his purpose, but he hasn't found it yet. He set out on this quest to find it, but now he isn't sure if it was worth it. He barely seems to register our presence at this point, caught up in his own thoughts. Right now, the only thing we can do is continue forward. We have our quest, and we can only hope our perseverance will convince Solaire to stay on his. Hooray, we're on Lost Izalith now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the land of T-Rex butts. Again, unfinished area with haphazard enemy placement. We run through it all and get to the upper levels. We finally see a new enemy type other than the fire statues. This is a Chaos Leader. I don't even know what I'm looking at here. These enemies are cool, as opposed to the other main enemy here. Those fire statues have one attack that locks them in place for you to strafe around and punish. We also get invaded by Kirk again, but he still hasn't figured out the whole getting flattened issue, so we continue on. We run through this hallway past the Titanite Demon and enter the shortcut hallway again. After clearing some of the sunlight maggots, we find Solaire. Believe it or not, we've saved him. If you load the Lost Izalith level before killing the maggot that gave you the helmet, you'll get here and it will have face-hugged Solaire, driving him insane. This was the ending of Solaire's quest for many, many people back in the day, until the way to open the shortcut door was discovered. Instead, we find him here. He found the strength to continue on for a short time, but now he's questioning himself again.
Was it all a lie? Have I done this all for nothing? Oh, my dear son. What now? What should I do? My son. My dear, dear son.
Look, Solaire, I know things can get tough out there. Believe me, I never told you about that trip to the catacombs. Do you feel like a failure because you haven't found your sunlight? If it's something worth having, it's not going to come easy. The question is whether or not you're going to persevere through the struggles. The going getting tough doesn't mean you're failing. It just means you're still on the right path. Now, I have a quest of my own I intend to complete. When I reach the end of that path, it'd be nice to see you there. We leave Solaire to think things over and return to Lost Izalith. While exploring, the floor collapses and we find Siegmeyer overlooking a group of Chaos Eaters. So, this requires some explaining. Let's go over what's supposed to happen first. When you talk to Siegmeyer, he's supposed to offer to jump down and sacrifice himself to repay his debt to you. If he jumps down, he can't defeat all 4 Chaos Eaters on his own, so the strategy is to take out all but one from up above, then talk to Siegmeyer. The reason you want to do this is because this moment can mess up the quest if certain conditions are not met, so let's go through them. If Siegmeyer survives the battle with less than 50% HP, he will succumb to the poison and will die, ending his questline. If he survives with more than 50% HP, he'll progress to the final step of his questline. If all of the Chaos Eaters, which these 4 are non-respawning, die before talking to Siegmeyer, he will thank you for saving him once again, and his questline will immediately end. So I get started and use Greater Lightning Spear to take out 2 of the 4. Then the worst thing happens. My hitbox goes over the edge as I aim for the 3rd one, and I fall into the pit. I killed the 3rd one and run for it. There is a way to get back up to Siegmeyer from down here, so I can still salvage this. Then, as I'm running, the Chaos Eater follows, stays aggroed on me, and then doesn't pay attention to where he's walking. In the most Dark Souls way possible, I messed up. I was so mad with myself. Getting back to Siegmeyer confirms my worst fears. Siegmeyer thanks us for saving him again, and that's the end of his questline, as far as my character is concerned. I'll go into detail about what would have happened in a little bit, but we need to move on. I'm pissed with myself. So now that I'm already mad, let's talk about the Bed of Chaos. There's no way of sugarcoating it. The Bed of Chaos is the worst boss in the entire FromSoft series. You first have to break these 2 glowing orbs to the sides of the boss to lower the shield. These seemingly are 2 of Izalith's daughters. After you kill each one, it will cause some sort of arm made out of Chaos Flame to appear from the boss. And after you kill the first one, the floor begins to drop away. Then, after you beat the second one, you have to run through all the flailing arms and jump onto this branch to get access to the actual boss. As I said in the Great Hollow, Dark Souls is not a platformer, but add in the need to do platforming while at any moment you can get swatted into a pit and you're not in for a good time. Fun fact, this is the only boss that Miyazaki has apologized for. Seriously, the man who led development on Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and Elden Ring, the man who has made more beloved bosses and more critically acclaimed games than most developers, has one boss that he regrets, and it was the Bed of Chaos. The only saving grace of this fight is that there are checkpoints after breaking the first 2 orbs off to the side, because even the devs knew that having to repeat the entire fight would be awful. The Bed of Chaos is a culmination of the lost potential of the second half of Dark Souls 1. I personally don't think the second half is some super awful mess that ruins an otherwise perfect game, but I had to talk about the fact that the second half of the game, DLC excluded, is just not as good as everything that leads up to Anor Londo. Now, you've probably noticed that all of my Bed of Chaos footage so far has not been mine. That's because I didn't use the intended method to fight the boss. I used the firebomb method because I have better things to do than to watch my hard drive fill up with footage of this fight. The method is where you carefully position yourself and then throw 2 firebombs to break the 2 sides. Then you're already past the leap of faith at the center and can just roll to the boss and finish the fight. Even still, I almost died anyways because of the Chaos Storm and other pyromancy the boss can summon even when you're already there. We get to the center and squash the bug, and now I'm upset again. From a story perspective, I find this to be a letdown. There's all this build-up about going to free Quelana's mother and sisters from the Flame of Chaos, and this is Izalith. She holds one of the 4 most powerful souls in the entire world. She built an entire civilization just like Gwyn did, and even though she didn't mean to, her failed ritual gave rise to the demons, an entirely new form of life. She's done all this, and the result is a bug at the center of a bunch of flaming branches. Lost Izalith, an area that caught the worst of rushed development, with the culmination being the Bed of Chaos, an unsatisfying boss from both a gameplay and story perspective. I know it's basically commonplace to dog on Lost Izalith and the Bed of Chaos, but like I have said throughout the video, Dark Souls isn't a game you can truly understand until you've played it, which means playing through the less than stellar parts too. One thing I will give this area props for is the intent behind why Izalith did this. She, just like Gwyn, was afraid of the fire fading, so she tried to bend the natural order. It failed and created demons, chaos, and suffering. Gwyn also felt fear and he linked the first flame. He succeeded, in a sense, but it ultimately resulted in hollowing and the undead. The setup was great, it just didn't pay off in a way that was fun to experience. I forgot to capture footage of this, but after leaving the area and returning to Blighttown, Quelana thanks us for freeing her family. We tell her that she still has one sibling left in the Fair Lady, but Quelana hesitates. She's been gone for so long and been presumed dead this whole time that she doesn't think she has the strength to return home. Emotionally, not physically. The decision is ultimately up to her, so we continue on. What was supposed to happen next was that we would follow the trail of our onion friend and find that Siegmeyer has entered the Great Hollow. We then step out onto Ash Lake to find, in this playthrough's instance, nothing because I messed up Siegmeyer's quest. But if I hadn't, we would find Siegmeyer here on the shores of Ash Lake, dead, with Sieglund standing over him. Siegmeyer seemingly went hollow for some reason when he made his way down here. It may be explained in the lore, but for whatever reason it was, whether it be comparison or feelings of inadequacy, Siegmeyer goes hollow, and his own daughter is forced to put him down. Sieglund would tell us she will return to the land of Katarina now that her father is gone, and that is that. Another undead has gone hollow, another friend lost to the curse. And in many ways, this one was entirely our fault. The game isn't clear what happens to Siegmeyer if you kill the Chaos Eaters before talking to him. Gameplay-wise, he just continues to stand there, but lore-wise, it's my belief that after we leave, he goes hollow, having failed to pay back his debt to us, and actually mounting an even greater debt since we saved him from fighting the Chaos Eaters. There's no interaction for this in-game, but Sieglund likely found her father eventually and was forced to kill him the same way she has to on the beach of Ash Lake. No matter what, Siegmeyer is gone. Another name added to the list. And we have to ask ourselves, If this quest requires this many sacrifices, what exactly are we preserving? One Lord Soul remains, and we are all too familiar with the area it resides in. We warp to the bonfire halfway through the Tomb of the Giants and travel even further on. Now that we have the Sunlight Maggot, we can use that to see instead of relying on the Skull Lantern or the spell that I'm still too stupid to use. And that's about it. The Tomb of the Giants is dark and has a bunch of big skeletons in it, but without the darkness, the tomb is barely a level. You can get through the first half in about 2 minutes if you know where to go, at which point you get a cool view of Ash Lake, an invasion from Paladin Leroy, who also hasn't figured out the pancake issue, and then the final tunnel before the boss has no darkness at all. The main mechanic of the entire area is literally dropped halfway through the level for pretty much no reason. This area has more pinwheels and baby skeletons. I don't understand why either of these are here. There may be a lore explanation, but it's not one that I know. Anyways, we make it past them and get to the boss fight. I love that you have to take half your health on the drop down, by the way. And it's apparently proportional to your max HP, so make sure you heal up. Gravelord Nito. He looks cool design-wise, even if he is mechanically pretty shallow. He has a couple of slash attacks, but the two main things that are going to give you trouble is his AoE attack, and this move where he stabs into the ground and a sword appears beneath you. If you get hit by this too many times, it will give you Toxic, which actually happened to me on this attempt. The other thing is that he is the only boss in the game to have minions in his fight. There's a few larger skeletons at the back of the arena you can avoid aggroing if you stay right at the drop down. Then the regular skeletons can be dealt with by using a divine weapon. I've gone back and forth on this section of the game and this video. Nito feels so boring. There's no build up to him. He has almost no presence in the story besides unleashing Dragon COVID in the opening cutscene. There's also not really much build up to his fight. But honestly, I think it works. Gravelord Nito is the first of the dead. He represents death itself, and death does not need any build up. It's an inevitability. Izalith did not have a satisfying conclusion to her narrative, and neither does Nito, but that's because he doesn't need a narrative at all. In a world with nuanced big-name characters like Gwyn and Izalith, Nito is the perfectly simple embodiment of entropy. I may not be the biggest fan of the Tomb of the Giants, but I think Nito is a solid ending to the area. Let's move on. Nito goes down. All 4 Lord Souls acquired, and on the very first try for all of them. John Darksoul keeps on winning. We make one final pit stop at Firelink Shrine. We take a quick check and confirm our suspicions that Petrus killed Rhea for her talisman. At least there was a little bit of justice in this world after all. While we're on the subject, we also return to the Undead Burg and settle our score with this Black Knight. Oh, now I get a Black Knight weapon to drop. We return to the Firelink altar and deposit the Lord Souls. By this point, we don't even consult Frampton anymore. Our worldview has been shattered. Let's just get this over with. The Lord Vessel is satiated, and the door in front of us opens, leading to the Kiln of the First Flame. This place looks really cool, and for the story purpose, it only serves to enrage our character more. The Kiln of the First Flame, where Gwyn, Izalith, Nito, and the Furtive Pygmy found their Lord Souls, where the catalyst for the destruction of the Everlasting Dragons was found. It's now nothing more than a burnt-out shell. A few of Gwyn's Black Knights guard the path, but it's not like it matters much. They're barely guarding anything at this point. This is why the gods were so desperate, why Frampton and Guinevere were so insistent on us fulfilling the prophecy. But what if there never really was a prophecy? We heard about it from Oscar, a fellow undead, but it's never repeated by anyone else. It may have been entirely fake, just a way to draw an endless number of undead to fix the mistakes the gods of Anor Londo made. It's here where the game finally dumps it all on you. Maybe there never was a chosen undead. What you were fighting for is exactly what they wanted. This was all manipulated so that some ignorant undead would make the sacrifice they were too cowardly to do themselves. The undead are unworthy to be recognized as defeating the Abyss, but now they're the world's only hope. And this may not even be the end. If the fire began to fade once, it may do it again. Most of the gods are gone or dead, but that doesn't mean someone or something else couldn't step into that role. We charge forward, ready to put an end to this whole mess, when something catches our eye. a golden summon sign. Solaire. Despite everything, he found the strength to endure. But what was it? What motivated him to persevere when the rest of the world was telling him to give up? Well, it was you. From the moment the two of you met, you have been this quiet yet determined presence. All throughout the game, Solaire has helped you, and you have in turn helped him. And how does he show his appreciation? Does he charge into the kiln, slay Gwyn, and become the sunlight in his own world? No. He sets down his summon sign, as he has many times before, and he waits. He waits for you. With Solaire at your side one last time, the two of you charge forward. We may have failed to save everyone else, but we managed to save Solaire. He stands beside us at the end of the path, as we stand before the final fog wall. Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, the once great king who ripped apart the dragons with great bolts of lightning. He's nothing more than a hollow shell of himself. So far has he fallen that he can barely expel a burst of flame. This is what we fought for, to see a broken man try and defend his Age of Fire. And this is not a first phase trick where he suddenly stands up and gets much harder. We expend his health bar, and that's it, he's dead. Accompanied by that simple melody for his soundtrack, Gwyn became one of the most iconic bosses of the series. Not because he was hard, but because he did what he needed to do. Sure, he may not be Pontiff Sullivan or Orphan of Kos, but he doesn't need to be. Dark Souls is a game about broken people trying to repair a broken world. And what better way to send that off than by having the greatest of the people be a broken defender of the thing that gave him power in the first place? Environmental storytelling. We teetered a bit there with Lost Izalith and Tomb of the Giants, but FromSoft knew exactly how to bring it home. We defeat Gwyn, and I quickly run away from the entrance to the arena to avoid accidentally triggering one of the two possible endings. Solaire looks at us, and we salute him one last time. He returns to his world to link his own flame and find his own sunlight. Goodbye, old friend. My only regret is I cannot stand beside you at your path's end. And now, the choice lies before us. Do we link the fire and continue the current age, or do we walk away and let the Age of Dark begin? Most of the characters in the game have been pushing us towards linking the fire, but the world has been asking us if that is really the best choice. One character whom I didn't encounter in this playthrough was Koth. He is much like Frampt, except he urges you to let the fire fade instead of linking it. Frampt and Koth are simply two sides of the same coin, but he presents you with the knowledge that there is another option. So, what do we do? The Undead Asylum, Blighttown, the Illusion of Anor Londo, the Painted World, Oolacile, everywhere we have gone has presented us with evidence that this is far from the world we thought and hoped it would be. Much like how the rose-colored glasses come off all of us in real life as we grow older and begin to see the world through the lens of an adult instead of a child. Yet still, our minds drift to Solaire and to everyone else. We wouldn't be here without Oscar. Siegmeyer's unyielding determination may have gotten him into trouble sometimes, but he always strove to continue his adventure. Laurentius, Logan, and Crestfallen all helped us in their own personal ways. We spent the whole game fighting alongside and being helped by undead who rarely, if ever, had a reason to help us. Maybe that's the answer. The cycle will likely begin again, but we can give everyone a chance to make a better world. Most of the gods who started this are gone, and the secret of Gwendolyn's illusion is out, so he's not likely to be much of an issue. Walking out of the arena triggers the Age of Dark ending, but that's for another playthrough. We turn to the fire and link it. The world may have its problems, and it may not even be worth saving, but it's still worth fighting for. We link the fire, not for Gwyn, but for Solaire, for Siegmeyer, for every undead who helped us even when they didn't have to. As the fire consumes our body, the souls we've collected fueling the first flame and giving it new life, we see a vision in the flames, of a kingdom far off in the future, one who someday may need a chosen undead of its own, one to bear the curse. Drangleic. But that is for another video. Until next time, thank you for watching. Don't you dare go hollow. And with that, this Dark Souls story comes to a close. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to watch. For my returning viewers, I know this was a bit of a departure from the usual style of content, but this was a great reset for me and a great challenge to create a different type of video. I am excited to tackle Dark Souls 2 and 3 in their own videos when the time comes, but we have some other projects in the works as well. Next up, we're jumping back on the road to Unicron. Last Night Rewrite is coming soon, as well as my first Star Wars rewrite, so stay tuned for that. For now, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, Please feel free to do all the usual stuff. Be good to each other, and I'll talk to you all soon. Take care.